Welcome to the Week 1 edition of the Giant Overreaction. I know y'all had no thought in any one of y'all damn minds that we were going to get blown out like that in a primetime game. And I know Daniel Jones' primetime record has not been good throughout his career. He only has one primetime win. But I had no idea that the Dallas Cowboys were going to come out here and skunk the New York Giants. I'm talking about they were like, bro, pass the sticks. Early lead in that game, and what could go wrong did go wrong in that game. Shout out to my man Stephen A. Smith one time. He normally says that about the Dallas Cowboys, but it's very appropriate to apply that to the New York Giants today because that was a pathetic performance. And I think a lot of people have been trying to erase in their minds what happened in the playoffs. You know, we want to keep that good memory from the Minnesota Vikings game. And I've told y'all all offseason, if you've watched my videos, I've talked about the New York Giants when they played the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings were frauds. That's a fact. And we want to keep that game in our mind and instead of keeping that Philadelphia Eagles dog walking in our mind, which really should have let people know where we stand as a team when it comes to going up against the greater opposition, especially within our own division. The Giants start the year off 0-1 in the NFC East. And I think Michael Irvin said this best. Michael Irvin said, we gave y'all a 40 burger and a donut for dessert. God damn, that is a bar. Big shout out to 88, man. That's definitely a bar right there. Micah Parsons was seeing on his Twitter, he said, y'all thought this was a game? So the Cowboys are looking at the New York Giants this morning and during that game as a complete joke. And there's a lot of comments about the quarterback and about the offensive line, and I see a big divide and a big split within the fan base, and we definitely going to get to that today. We got a lot to talk about. This is going to be a slow burner edition of the Giant Overreaction. I appreciate all of y'all pulling up here early, bright and early, joining me so we could talk about this debacle of a game last night. This the kind of game, I'll never forget this when I was a kid, right? I had one of my homies, his name's Douglas, he's a Ravens fan. We still homies till this day, okay? And we were we probably was about 7 or 8 years old. And I used to have a couple other homies who lived behind me named Ramsey and my bro Nat, rest in peace, man. But they lived at the corner house behind me, right? And Douglas used to be nice on the sticks on Madden. He was crazy with it, right? My homie Ramsey was super nice with it too. Ramsey was an OG though. He's about my brother's age. So we go over there, we hop the fence. My boy Doug talking all kind of big shit before we get over there, right? Man, by halftime, I literally seen the tear dropping down my homie's face with the way that he was getting beaten that game. And that's exactly how I felt last night watching this New York Giants team. Now, if you paid attention to the way that we did the preview show before the games on Thursday and some of the lead-up stuff that we did, even the conversations I had with Entertainer, also the conversations I had with Professor O and Nix on their channel, it was a Cowboys podcast I went on, you could see that I was not extremely confident about this game. Now, I did pick the New York Giants to win this one because that's opening day, what I looked like not picking my team. I told that to the Beard right after he made his prediction, and I went into that show kind of unsettled on who I was going to pick to win this game. But if you paid attention, when we did the record prediction and we did the stat predictions of the show, I picked the Giants to be 8-9, and if you look at the games I checked off, I said that the Dallas Cowboys going to sweep us, the Philadelphia Eagles going to sweep us, we're going to split with the Commanders, and I had a couple other losses on that schedule too, Miami, Seattle, the Buffalo Bills, the Jets. I'm worried about a lot of these games. And now when you see the way that the Arizona Cardinals put up a fight against the Washington Commanders yesterday, it worries you. When you see the way Jordan Love comes out and puts up a fantastic performance against the Chicago Bears in a blowout victory, it worries you. When you see the way the Rams came out and put up a performance against the Seattle Seahawks, it begins to worry you even more. Now, like I told y'all, this is going to be a slow burner. I got my man Peter Rosenberg from Hot 97 coming on to jump on with us in the second hour of the show to talk a little bit about the early state of the NFC East. And, you know, Peter's a guy who does, a lot of media in the market for New York. So I definitely wanted to get his stance and his position on this whole situation with the New York Giants, especially from the quarterback perspective. I'll never forget when I had Peter on the first show back in the 2020 season that was, and he told me about when he met Daniel Jones, how he was like, yo, this is a quarterback. When you stand in front of him, the stature, the handshake, everything about him screams, I'm a quarterback. And he also compared him a lot to Eli Manning. So I definitely want to get his perspective on that. I know a lot of y'all pulled up for that interview that's going to happen later. I believe Peter's going to be at MetLife today, too. He's going to be traveling, so he's either going to be like in the car or he's going to be on site at MetLife when he does this interview, man. But big shout out to Peter for taking some time out of his day. I'm going to have my phone on alert, so if you hear some dings in the background and whatnot, just pay that no mind. I just want to make sure I'm by my phone because I know Peter's extremely busy and just taking some time out of his day is going to be extremely tough for him to be able to get over here. So a big salute to Peter Rosenberg for doing that. Shout out to everybody, man, who pulled up in the chat bright and early, man. I even saw somebody come in and drop a super chat for the memorial fund for the New York Giants. Shout out to the homie one time, Death Pile Picker popped in. He said early super chat to start building that G-Man Memorial Fund. Rest in peace. That was a ugly, ugly, ugly game last night, man. And like I said, man, there was I didn't expect this game to go like this, right? I don't think anybody woke up this morning and said, man, I told y'all like this, right? Unless you was a Dallas Cowboys fan, because a lot of Dallas Cowboys fans was definitely walking into this game confident. I had talked to my homie Skywalker Steele about this when he was featured on the podcast with me. And he was saying, like, Giants fans were, like, in his chat calling in, like, why are y'all so, confident walking into this game? Well, Dak Prescott was on a 10-game winning streak, so that gives them a lot of reason to be confident in this one. So I get it. But from a Giants perspective, it was really a head-scratcher for me to see how many fans were walking into this game and the amount of shit that was being talked across social media platforms as if we were going to come into this game and dog-walk the Dallas Cowboys. I know people were looking at Dak Prescott's interception issues and whatnot from last year, leading the league, and they thought Dak Prescott was going to come out here and just be an interception machine. I thought that the weather was going to help us a little bit in this one, but it didn't. And here goes $5 from the homie Death Pile Picker to start the memorial fund for the New York Giants. Death Pile Picker, I know it's kind of a backhanded compliment to send us this kind of super chat, but that goes a super long way, man, supporting this channel. And I appreciate you pulling up, being in the building bright and early as well. My homie Kellen No More, who's always here for a bunch of streams. Big shout out to Kellen No More in the building. He said, formerly known as Kai 001. That's the fam right there. He said, I hope it's understood why my new name is what it is. Mike didn't get cute like Kellen Moore would have and put Dak in spots to give the Giants a chance to get back in this game. That's facts, man. Times when you would have seen Kellen Moore go for it and be cute, too aggressive on fourth downs and things like that. You saw Mike McCarthy playing a bit of old school football and allowing Dak Prescott to get the ball out quick, hit that back foot. No pressure got to Dak Prescott in this game, and I don't think that was just a statement on our defensive line being garbage or being trash, whatever anybody want to call it this morning or this afternoon. For me, it had a lot to do with Dak Prescott being very decisive and just getting rid of the ball super quick, hitting that back foot, not taking long on the drops, and also Mike McCarthy setting up a great intermediate and short passing game, which is what Brian Dable did really well for Daniel Jones last year, and there was a lot that went wrong in this game coaching-wise. So big shout-out to Kai one time in the building. Kellen No More. There's purpose behind that for sure, and we saw that with the Chargers game, even though they put up big points, and you really can't blame it on their offense. They did take an L week one, but big shout-out to the homie Kai for being in the building. All the Cowboys fam is in the building early today, man. I appreciate y'all pulling up, and y'all know how I'm going to do. I'm not going to shy away from the smoke. I always tell, even when I'm playing Apex Legends with the homies, right, they want to drop off far away from the action and whatnot, collect loot, and then finally get into some action after you collected loot and get killed in 2 seconds. I'm like, let's run right to the smoke and figure out who we are. We ran right to the smoke. It was fire right there waiting for us, and it burned the New York Giants down in a quick fashion here. My man, Brother L, who is always in Skywalker Steel streams, man, he always showing support over here, says, no hate in the super chat. I'll save it for the comments. Ha. And then he says, just supporting the cause from the ops one time who ain't the ops. That's love right there, man. Big shout out to the Brother L one time showing up with that $4.99 super chat. And my homie Zeke, man, who's always in the building, I appreciate you pulling up as well with that $5 super chat. He says, yo, bro, gotta bless the beloved. I was there in the rain. Hurts worse in person. Listen, man, for everybody that was out there in the rain, I saw like some nightmare stories, people talking about this on Twitter, traveling all the way across the country to pull up to this game and watch the New York Giants get flat out embarrassed like that, not even put up a score. I mean, even the field goals were missing. Everything that could go wrong in this game went wrong, and then the weather being bad. You got to sit out there in treacherous rain and watch your team get dogged by a division rival. That is not the way. I was trying to finesse and get up there to New York to watch this game, and I don't know, man, like by the good graces of God, I didn't find my tickets and things didn't go right. So I think that was a blessing for me in disguise, because I would have been losing my mind at a game like this. And I'll tell you how I do. When football games are getting out of hand and I'm there in person, I'm just going to let the alcohol do all the talking. I'm going to keep drinking. And this would have been a nightmare. I would have been swimming pools like Kendrick Lamar out there, and that wouldn't have been a good thing. And then also having to travel all the way back to D.C. It was definitely a bad one, man. So, Zeke, I feel for you for being at that game, man. And I hope no New York Giants fan has to witness anything like that. You know, I'm going to get off into some of these numbers in a second here. I just wanted to shout out the people that got here early, drop these super chats, showing some support to the channel. That's love. Y'all notice it takes a lot to get up here after a L like that. It takes a lot. And I seen it. Like, A lot of these people, shout out to my homie Bass who hosts the spaces and whatnot on Twitter. A lot of people are split and indifferent on those spaces because we talk honest ball in those spaces. And if you don't like honest ball, you're not going to enjoy those spaces because we have no cut cards. We talk it like it is. We're not going to sit here and put the fluff and be mascots for the New York Giants. That's not our job. We are fans. We're not mascots. We are here to assess the game, watch the game, and hopefully enjoy New York Giants football. But based on them, man, they were definitely talking a lot of good points last night, man. And, you know, we were all just frustrated in there, man. It was a lot of screaming, but I liked it. We all got to get our thoughts out and speak about this game. Just not a good one. Just not a good one. And I don't know if this is one that you could just, like, you know, ball it up, throw it in the garbage, and get ready for next week, right? But a lot of people who were blowing smoke before this game, you know, saying like, you know, the New York Giants, watch after Sunday when we take care of Dak Prescott. I saw people clowning Dak Prescott's outfit when he walked into the stadium saying, this is the guy that's going to beat us. I think that was actually one of the beat writers, too, from the New York Giants that said that. I'm like, did y'all forget who Dak Prescott was? Did y'all forget that he's coming into this game on a 10-game winning streak? Did y'all forget about the Dallas Cowboys defense that made major upgrades that probably brought in another cornerback one over there? When you look at the Philadelphia Eagles and you look at the Dallas Cowboys right now, those are the two teams maybe in the whole entire league that have a cornerback 1A and 1B, right? And did we forget about those things? Because it seemed like a lot of people were walking into this game extremely, I won't even say extremely confident. I'm going to say extremely cocky, extremely arrogant, extremely condescending. And then when it all boiled down, and this is what Bass was talking about, none of them was on Twitter to even own up to any of it. Shout out to Bass one time because Bass went live before the game, in the morning of the game, at halftime, and after the game because we going to own it. If we was out here talking, we going to own it. So shout out to all the Dallas Cowboys fans that went out there, they got their victory, you know, and we're confident about their team with good reasoning. Like, the Giants should not be walking into this game thinking that we're going to go out here and dog walk the Dallas Cowboys, especially the way that they've owned us in the division. So big kudos to all of the Dallas Cowboys fans, man. Y'all won that game fair and square in a major way. And as soon as I saw that field goal get blocked, I was like, oh, man, we in trouble. We definitely in trouble. So shout out to y'all. I see my man Keith Wilson Jr. is in the building one time. Shout out to the homie one time for the $4.99 super chat. He says, man, I don't know, bro. I sparked the L and just sat there for 2 hours after the game staring at the wall. I had to hide the tears from my girl. Good Lord. Yeah, it was bad. I don't know if you saw my tweet. I posted the Carl Thomas emotional video, you know, he just got all the R&B hands, you know, talking about how he's emotional because I definitely felt like that. But there was a part of me, and shout out to Mike C., who's in one of my group chats. We talk about this a lot. There was a part of me that kind of knew this was coming, but not in this fashion. I just didn't know we were going to get blown out like this. I thought it could be like 31-24. I picked a score of 26-24 for the New York Giants, but I thought it could kind of be like that for the Dallas Cowboys. And early on in that game, it was 26-0, and I was like, oh, man, is this score going to come to fruition? And it didn't. It got even worse. The second half even got worse. And speaking on sparking the L's, man, I'm the kind of person that I don't spark the L's really until I feel like the game is out of reach. And literally after that field goal got blocked, I was sparking up crazy. I'm just like, man, this one's dead. This is a dead game right here. Can we get a mulligan and get back out here and maybe try this again because that was awful. But shout out to Keith Wilson pulling up here and rocking with us today, man, on this week one edition of the Giant Overreaction. Shout out to all of y'all in the building, all the new folks here today. Hang tight. I got Peter Rosenberg pulling up for the second hour. I'm going to break down the game. I'm going to give y'all about 3 of the overreactions, see how y'all are feeling about them. And then I also got 3 more overreactions for when Peter gets here to go over that are more a little bit NFC East driven and kind of can pull in the Commanders fans as well because Peter is a Commanders fan. I know Peter from here being native to Washington, D.C. And then when he went to New York, I remember when he first got his gig at Hot 97, he blessed me with a bunch of shows. One of the infamous shows was the fight between Saigon and Mobb Deep. For the OG New York heads who know about that big fight that happened at SOB's, I was the opening act on that bill with Kev Brown and my homie Camber. And a lot of the reason why that happened was because of my homie Kev Brown being late to the show. And then all the acts ended up getting pushed back, and Saigon and Mobb Deep was getting into beef because the show was getting too late. Big fight popped off. It started to get a little crazy in there, man. And this was back in the days before social media. But shout out to Peter, man. He's blessed me with a ton of opportunities, spun my records on Hot 97, and done a bunch for me, man. And I also set him up with his streaming setup during the pandemic and whatnot for Hot 97 for the show he does with Ebro and whatnot, and all his personal streams as well. So stay tuned. He's going to be here for the second hour. That should be really interesting. Shout out to Monique one time. She also sent in a super chat here for $4.99. Definitely appreciate you pulling up, Monique. This is my homegirl from around the way here. She says, my question was not why Giants fans were confident, but why they thought the Giants were going to demolish the Cowboys. Saving hate for the beard. Yeah, the beard, yo, I think the Beard overlooking y'all defense for sure because he's got y'all placed at the bottom of the division at the end of the year. And I just don't see that. You know, I had you guys at second place in the division simply because I think y'all have a tougher schedule than the Philadelphia Eagles. But I do have the Dallas Cowboys representing the NFC East, and I thought that they could get the farthest actually in the NFC. A lot of people now are starting to say, oh, I think the Dallas Cowboys can possibly get to the Super Bowl and represent the NFC East. We hear that every year. I know. I did when I did the podcast with Professor O and Nix, they're Cowboys fans. I said, I got to leave y'all with one thing before I get off air, and I think this is y'all shot, man. Like, if you've ever had a roster that could get to the Super Bowl, I think this is y'all shot here. You know, the upgraded cornerback 2, the upgraded wide receiver 2 are going to pay great dividends. That's going to go a long way. But shout out to Monique for pulling up in the building one time. And Zeke Anderson got one more. Appreciate that, man, with the $5 super chat. He says we have talent issues at key positions, and last night a coaching issue. Camp Heroes is fool's gold. That's facts, man. That's definitely facts. Shout out to all of y'all in the building, man. I see the chat is super overwhelming. I see a bunch of y'all, Sebastian, Chris Peace in the building, Gregory in the building, DP in the building. Who else in the building? Fabian, my man Word is in the building one time. All my OGs. Michael Knight is in the building. Marjorie's in the building. Vintage Sports Flips in the building. Peter Turner's in the building. Man, we got a bunch of y'all, and I'm glad y'all pulled up. This is going to be a great therapy session. I'm going to break down a bunch of key points, some of the things I got right in our predictions when we were talking about this game, some of the things I got wrong as well. It's going to be a good, long, slow-burning stream today. Sit back, get your cup of coffee, do what you do, get your L's rolled up, whatever you got to do to get comfortable. Pull up a chair, son, put one in the air, son. Shout out to the homie Nas one time. And we definitely going to talk about this game. Just trying to scroll down, get this chat a little bit up to date here. Now, let's go in and let's talk about the game real quick. We're going to get to the quarterback. Y'all know over here I always get to the quarterback. We got to get to the quarterback. That's number one. And we're going to get there for sure, right? I saw that Shannon Sharp had said this morning. He said, I don't care how much you pay Daniel Jones. He is who he is, right? And today there was a lot of pressure on there. And a lot of Giants fans were saying, yeah, yesterday is when Daniel Jones is going to go out there and show you he's a $160 million quarterback. And that was definitely not the case. And we can't sit here and say it was all his fault, but we are not going to deflect any of the blame off Daniel Jones. That was a pitiful game. I looked up, and it was the third quarter, and I think he was like 1 for 6 for 37 yards. I don't care what's going on. Now, fans are definitely upset today, and I understand it, and I think that all of us underestimated the Cowboys in a major way. I did talk about, like, if you're going to catch the Cowboys slipping, week 1 is a good time to do it, kind of like how we caught the Titans slipping last year, week 1, and then the Titans went on to win 6 of their next 7 games, right? This year, we didn't get the same results. And I felt like we wouldn't get the same results. Back in June, I was kind of, a little bit confident about this game. But as the Cowboys start making their acquisitions and making their moves and bringing in players, I started to be like, man, it's starting to not look as good as I thought, back in early summer. And by the time we got to September, I'd say like the last 3 weeks before the season, I started to feel like, man, I don't think we're going to get a victory in this game. It's not looking good. The Dallas Cowboys have a really good roster. They've gelled on defense. They've had their defensive coordinator over there for now going into his 3rd season, led the NFL in takeaways the past 2 seasons. First time anyone has done that since the 70s. I believe it was the Pittsburgh Steelers who did it back then. So, this isn't a game where we should have walked in on a high horse, and I put that in our preview title for the description. I said, can the New York Giants knock the Dallas Cowboys off their high horse? Because why would the Giants be on a high horse? And it was a pun on the Cowboys. Cowboys, they ride a horse and whatnot. But I just don't see why, as Giants fans, we should have walked into this one confident. Like, more hope than anything, And I just think we have a lot of blind faith in the Giants community and the fan base. And a lot of the times it sparks arguments because we have an irrational fan base. And I think that goes across the country, possibly for a lot of teams that are in limbo, kind of rebuilding, kind of trying to win games, that are having success. And, I just think you got to step down. And I always say this on the show, man. We can't be pessimistic. We can't be optimistic. We have to be realistic. And I guess I'm just speaking to myself because I can't tell anybody how to fan, right? Like, fan how you want to fan. But at the end of the day, if I'm putting something out there and you have a comment on it, just know that that's how I fan. I fan from a very realistic point, sometimes from a pessimistic point, because I don't like to look at things optimistically. Like, if one team beat this team and we beat that team, then we're probably going to beat that team. I used to think like that when I was a child, and I'm a 40-year-old man now. I can't think like that. That's just not how I do. So I wanted to go over some of the opening notes from Giants.com and just talk about some of the key, like, notes and notable things that happened in this game. And then we could get off into really breaking down the game and just talking about how things went left and how things went wrong and whatnot. So let's go ahead and do that, man. Again, I appreciate all of y'all pulling up, man, on a day like this, especially all the Giants fans, man, because this is a tough one. This is a really tough one. So shout out to y'all who are watching us on all platforms across the internet today, man, because this is going to be a good slow burner, a great show for y'all to really push you through the rest of this week and get us ready for the Cardinals. We'll be here tomorrow doing the official recap. A little bit more in depth with a little bit more numbers and whatnot. And then on Thursday, we'll be doing our preview. But shout out to all of y'all again, man, for being here today. This going to be a tough one, but it's going to be I promise you're going to walk away from this one and feeling a little bit better about this loss. I can definitely promise you that. So, opening notes from Giants.com. This is the largest loss in an opening day game in New York Giants history. Damn, that is just like, that's devastating right there. Largest Cowboys shutout victory in Cowboys history. So, damn, we on both of the opposite ends of this one for the Cowboys and for the Giants in a terrible negative way. The Giants had 171 total yards, absolute garbage. It's our worst since 2021, I believe it was. The largest regular season loss for the New York Giants since 1973. Man, that's before my brother. That's like my mom was a youngin' back then. That's way back in the day. Shutout for the first time since 2018. The 26-0 halftime deficit is the largest in a Giants regular season game since 2010. The Giants have now been outscored, and this one, I was talking to the homie Stan about this through text earlier this morning and whatnot. The Giants have now been outscored in their last two games, 78-7. Both divisional games. And we can't use this. We definitely can't use that on that. We got to care about that, and we got to find a way to dig ourselves up out of this hole immediately. Dak Prescott is now on an 11-game winning streak versus the New York Giants. And I don't know, somebody DM me on my Twitter, and they were like, hey, man, I'm a young fan, and I respect your opinion, bro, and I just want to know when you think this is going to stop. Like, when do you think we're going to be able to get over the hump over the Dallas Cowboys? And, man, when a young fan hits me up like that, that's heartbreaking, man, because I had to tell him, like, bro, I don't know. I really don't know. I have no clue. We thought that the front office was making all the right moves and whatnot, and it felt good in the offseason, right? And it looks good on paper. But when you go out there and you get beat like this, 40-0, I know a lot of people's hopes and dreams are being deflated fast. And I got us at 8-9 this year. It's not going to surprise me if the Giants win less games than that, if the performance that they put out there on the field on Sunday night continues. And we got a good game to get a bounce-back type of win against the Cardinals, but I don't think that we should overlook them. So much went wrong in this game. You had the blocked field goal to start the game. You had the 2 interceptions from Daniel Jones. You had the pick 6 on a just weird play. A great play from Trayvon Diggs on that one. You had the Isaiah Hodgins fumble. You had Graham Gano missing field goals. I mean, everything that could go wrong in this game went wrong in this game. And again, I'll repeat this. We got to stop trying to erase the negative. You know what we do as Giants fans? And like I said, I can't tell y'all how to fan, but I can just assess it and just look at our fan base and just be like, we have to find a better way. We like to do this. Saquon Barkley knee get hurt. I talked about this last year. Tears the ACL. Oh, man, Saquon's going to come back better than ever. He's going to be like Adrian Peterson. Evan Neal go out there struggling year one. Hey, man, well, Andrew Thomas struggled year one. I promise you, man, Evan Neal's going to be great this year. We struggle against covering the tight end all of last year. Hey, that's why we got Isaiah Simmons and Bobby O out here, man. We're going to be just fine. We start 2 cornerbacks out there who are rookies. I was having to explain this to my girlfriend yesterday when we were watching the game. I was like, when I see these players on the field through their face mask, if I don't see the back of the jersey, I'm not even familiar with these dudes. They have not been on the field. When you look at Deonte Banks and you look at Trey Hawkins, you don't get to see these guys a lot. So when I'm seeing them in their helmets, I'm like, bro, I don't even recognize these dudes. Some of these depth pieces that have came in to fill in the secondary, I'm like, I don't even recognize these dudes. So I'm getting familiar with that. And the fact that you can go out here and start two rookie cornerbacks and our base is like, oh, no, man, well, what about Tariq Woolen? Like, you cannot keep comparing the Giants to every successful other organization and every anomaly out there. The same goes for Daniel Jones when he struggled. Everyone's like, oh, well, Eli Manning struggled his first 4 years or his first 3 years. And, Daniel Jones is going to get it together. We cannot keep banking on history to repeat itself because it's likely not to. It's likely not going to do that. So I talked about a couple of things that really worried me in this game, right? And I tweeted this out, and people were giving me hella pushback. And I'm like, I understand on the internet, like I try to keep a lot of my tweets like very like neutral in a way. Like, I know when I'm poking the bear, and a lot of people say that you'll know when Awthentik is poking the bear when he starts a tweet or he starts a phrase by saying, I'm going to keep it funky, which is facts. When I say I'm going to keep it funky, that means, look, I'm going to talk about some shit that y'all don't want to talk about, but this is in reality what it is, right? But I try to tweet stuff out and keep it really neutral. And when I talked about my worries in a tweet, so many people were giving me pushback. Like, you're talking about things from last year, and that roster was not good last year, and this year we have a great roster. And we address those things. Just because you address something does not mean that you fixed it, right? If you got a leaky pipe, for instance, right now, my toilet upstairs in my bathroom, right? The flapper on the toilet is causing bubbles. And I know when you see bubbles in the toilet, this is some good advice for you youngins out there when you get your first place, right? If you see bubbles in the toilet, you know something wrong with the flapper and you're leaking water. You giving out free money. You giving out free money right there, right? And I seen these things coming with the New York Giants. I seen things, right? And just because you address the bubbles are there, if you don't get the flapper, your water is still going to be leaking. And sometimes you could go to the Home Depot and get the flapper and try to install it and try to be a handyman yourself, and you still got bubbles. So just because you address something does not mean that you have fixed it. The concerns I talked about in that tweet was Brandon Cooks and CeeDee Lamb versus the young cornerbacks, and our young wide receivers going up against their, I'll call it a veteran secondary, a veteran defense, because they're still pretty young, but they got players who are established. Let's call them an established secondary, right? People are like, oh man, we got Jalen Hyatt, man. He's gonna show that wide receiver coach over there wrong. I ain't hear Jalen Hyatt's name called all day. I don't even want to look at the stat box, the box score, and see what it was. I clocked out of this game by the second quarter. I was pretty much clocked out. I'm sitting there watching it, but I'm doing a bunch of other things, right? And I keep a quote right here. It's right there, printed out on a piece of paper. It's a Wayne Gretzky quote, and it says, skate to where the puck is going. I love it because it's like, if you plan and you get ready and you try to see the future and prepare for that, you're going to be better prepared than the people who are trying to prepare in the moment, right? So I tried to kind of skate to where the puck was going as far as like, okay, I see this could be a close matchup, but let me leave some things open-ended a little bit and at least be able to try to land near where the puck is going. I had no idea that the Cowboys were going to come out here and beat us 40-0. And I had no idea that it would be a defensive domination like this. I thought their offense was going to fare better than this, but their offense didn't have to do too much in this game, right? Another thing I questioned was, how will Tony Pollard fare without Ezekiel Elliott on the field? And can we stop the run? Because in 2 games versus the Dallas Cowboys previous, they put up 345 rushing yards on us in the 2 games, right? And we didn't stop the run that great in this game. The Cowboys were not on the field that much, and the Giants won the time of possession. I'll get off into that a little bit more. But Tony Pollard had around 70 yards in this game. So you know me, the magic number for Saquon Barkley is always 70 yards. When you look back at the New York Giants last season, we won every game where Saquon Barkley ran over 70 yards, except there was one game where he didn't run over 70 yards, where Daniel Jones actually took a lot of that, and he was running, and that was against the Colts to clinch our playoff berth last year, and Saquon was under 70. But every other game, we needed Saquon to get over 70 to win. And we're going to get to that. I'm going to talk about the identity of this team in a little bit here. So I talked about Pollard in the run, and I did think that the weather was an advantage for the New York Giants, but with the game plan that they went out there with, that didn't come to fruition. Our quarterback had more rushing attempts than Saquon Barkley. That's just outright stupid, especially when you got these edge rushers and you forget it, the whole defensive line of the Dallas Cowboys and their depth and every kid that was on the bench, everybody holding a towel, coming after Daniel Jones, and you don't run the ball. This is now 3 straight games that I've seen this from Mike Kafka and Brian Dable, and it's starting to become extremely frustrating. Now, I also talked about the matchup with Jake Ferguson, and this was the one that a lot of people were kind of laughing at, LOLs, putting laughing emojis, right? They're like, you're worried about Jake Ferguson? Go and look at the box score. I took a little glance at it before I came on air. Jake Ferguson dropped a lot of opportunities yesterday, but he was definitely a focal point in that game plan. He had the most targets of any Dallas Cowboy last night. He had 7, and I believe it was CeeDee Lamb who had the second highest with 4. So keep that in mind. Jake Ferguson was definitely a part of this game plan, but he just did not have a good game. A lot of drops. CeeDee Lamb had a play where he could have made it in the end zone as well, and I don't know if you could consider that a drop, but definitely a play that I feel like he could have made. The other thing was, will they move Micah Parsons around? This is another thing I listed in that same exact tweet. And, yeah, they definitely moved Micah Parsons around. They had him all over the field. And Micah Parsons is the best defensive player, especially when it comes to coming after the quarterback in the entire football league, if you ask me. And if you want to debate it, which it is debatable, he's in the top 3 on anybody's list. And for Giants fans that are saying, hey, man, keep Micah Parsons' name out of the same sentences with Lawrence Taylor, you need to just pipe down. I promise you need to pipe down. The Dallas Cowboys were the fastest defensive front on the field of any football team that we saw all weekend. I saw the Detroit Lions looking fairly fast. Aiden Hutchinson spin moves, doing a lot of pass moves, using his hands a lot to get to the quarterback, dipping low, bull rushes, showing you it all. And I was like, man, that Detroit Lions team looked like they mid-season form kind of. There was another team I felt the same way about. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was only 2 teams. Oh, I thought the Packers looked like that offensively, right? And when you look at the Dallas Cowboys defensively, there's no team that looked like that, from all the games that I was focused on. I didn't see any team that looked like that. They were extremely fast. And Micah Parsons, I saw a play where he got double teamed and he still got to Daniel Jones. He got stood up on a double team, and then it was like almost like we just ran out of gas and it just deflated. And then Micah Parsons right at the quarterback. I talked about the matchup between Evan Neal and Dexter Lawrence. And it was Evan Neal versus whoever else was out there because Evan Neal had a poor game. And a lot of Giants fans out here are trying to blame this whole entire game on Evan Neal. I even saw, people just like saying, like, let's just address that. We need to address right tackle. We get a right tackle. Maybe it's going to plug, fix some things. This is a bigger issue than just one player on this team. I talked about, can we get pressure on Dak Prescott? I was worried. 0 sacks in 2 games entering this game, against the Dallas Cowboys. That's now 3 straight, 0 sacks. And when you flip side that, they have 15 sacks in those 3 games on Daniel Jones. That's not the way. That's just not the way. And the last thing that I put in this tweet was, we cannot get down on the scoreboard in this game because that is not how Daniel Jones is effective. And I know all y'all going to point to, oh, but what about the comeback wins and the game-winning drives last year? He had 5 comeback wins. I broke that down and told y'all how fraudulent that was. Go look at the statistics in those games. 60% of the offense came from Saquon Barkley, okay? Daniel Jones did not have one pass that went beyond the sticks in any one of those game-winning drives or comebacks. So I'm not taking anything away from him, but don't allow these things. Dig deep. Do yourself the service and dig deep into these numbers. When you see them talking about 5 game-winning drives, Kenny Pickett had 4 game-winning drives last year, and the Pittsburgh Steelers had 12 touchdowns, 12 passing touchdowns as an entire team last year, right? And Kenny Pickett had 4. He was second in the NFL with 4 game-winning drives. You think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to the bank with that, saying, man, our quarterback is clutch? Hell no. And you saw it again on Sunday with Kenny Pickett. It was not a great day for him. It was not a great day. Kenny Pickett struggles reading zone defenses, but that's a Pittsburgh Steelers problem. Now, the Giants' drives in this game were just pathetic. Started off with a blocked field goal, a punt, a pick six, a punt, an interception, a missed field goal, a punt, a turnover on downs, a fumble, and a turnover on downs. That's worse than the Philadelphia Eagles divisional game, where they started out the game with 3 3-and-outs and a turnover on downs. This is worse than that. And I can't believe that we came up here and we put up such a pathetic performance in such a big game after being, within the division last year, being one of the worst teams, only having 1 divisional win last year and still making the playoffs. The onus should have been this year that we got to go out here and win divisional games. And a lot of Giants fans were talking about this on Twitter like, oh, we can lose this game and we're going to be all right? No, we're not going to be all right because we don't have another divisional game until 7 weeks until we see the Commanders in week 7. So, no, we're not going to be all right. These other teams are going to be stacking up wins. We're at the bottom of the division with a terrible head start with the rest of the division on us. And we got to try to find a way to climb through one of the toughest stretches we're about to see here after this Arizona Cardinals game. And not in this order, but you got the Seattle Seahawks, you got the Jets, you got the Buffalo Bills, you got the Miami Dolphins. How in the hell are the Giants going to win these games playing the way they played on Sunday? They're going to have to go back to the drawing board and fix a lot. Now, on third down, the Dallas Cowboys were just under 50%. They were 6 of 13. New York Giants were 5 of 16. The third down numbers don't look that bad considering how bad this game went, but it looked a lot worse than that. Rushing-wise, we were outgained by the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys had 7 defensive sacks on the day. The New York Giants had 0. Time of possession was fairly dominated by the New York Giants, but that's because every time the Cowboys were on the field, they were scoring, and their defense was scoring. They had 2 defensive scores in this game and just causing turnovers. The takeaways, 3 in this game for the Dallas Cowboys. 5 fumbles from the New York Giants on the day. I think only 1 of those was lost to Isaiah Hodgins one. Yards per play went to Dallas, 4.8 yards per play. The New York Giants only had 2.6 yards per play. And in the red zone, the Dallas Cowboys were 3 of 4, and the New York Giants were 0 for 2. After being extremely efficient last year, the New York Giants fell where we were 0% in the red zone this year. And I talked about it. We got to get more opportunities in the red zone. I was watching Dan Orlovsky on ESPN earlier today. I like to kind of just check and run through a lot of the clips that are focused on the New York Giants. And he said the Giants ran 65 plays yesterday. 30 of those plays went for 0 gain or negative yards. That's like putting my JV high school team out there and watching them go. I think me and the Beard could have went out there and got a couple yards positive for real. I mean, like, that is extremely pathetic, man. And let me just tap in with y'all real quick. I know we got a lot of new people in the building, man. Big shout out to all of y'all, man, for pulling up. I see a lot of new faces, man, and welcome to the party, man. Welcome to Awthentik and the Beard. Welcome to the family over here, man, as we like to call it. Nobody is a fan except all of us up here. I'm just another fan just like y'all, giving y'all my perspective on how I see the game, whether it's right or wrong. You know, I try to do my best to deep dive on this stuff and try to bring accurate, assessment and just bring some things that make you think and make you think about your team a little bit. Shout out to the people who are sending in some of these super chats, and shout out to the gang for just showing y'all presence one time in the building. Fabian's in the building one time. He sends in that $2 super chat. He says, any Thomas updates? Without him, it will be tragic. I haven't even got a chance to really scour my social media, man. Like, I was up till like 4:30 in the morning last night just watching, catching up on what I could see. I watched the entertainer stream. I didn't get to catch it live, but he just seemed extremely disheartened and down because he was one of the people that was more confident coming into this game. But man, it's just football at the end of the day, and it's just one game. So like, don't let this ruin your whole entire week. I know we're diehard Giants fans and whatnot, but don't let this ruin your entire week, right? Like, we got 16 more games to go out here and try to prove to the NFL that we belong. So as far as the Thomas updates, I'm not sure, but y'all all know that Andrew Thomas is the only thing good going on this entire offensive line. So we got to get that fixed. Shout out to Ty Jackson one time in the building for that $4.99 super chat. He says, was my first Giants game. God damn. Damn. This is what I don't like reading right here. He said, I drove up from Maryland. I was born in Tacoma Park, Maryland. I'm from Silver Spring, Maryland. I've been in D.C. for like the past decade pretty much. And if you know Silver Spring, Maryland, it's right on the line of D.C. That's all the DMV area. So I know exactly how much of a hassle this is to drive up to New York, and how much money you got to spend on these games. These tickets are outrageous when you go to MetLife, right? He says, drove up from Maryland. Still can't believe that happened. I can't believe I bought in all summer. Same issues the last 10 years. Yeah, you're right about that. Same issues the last 10 years with one little anomaly of a season. And y'all know me, man. I like to take the best of something and throw it out and then take the average of the rest of something. And that's how I come to my determination on things. So when you look at the last decade from the New York Giants, our best season really is this past season in 2022 with Brian Daboll. Take that out, throw it out. We're the worst team in the NFL. That's a fact. Ty, I'm glad you're here today, man. I hope this helps you out a little bit, give you a little bit of a therapy session, and moving forward, you can feel better about the rest of this week. And by the time we get to Thursday and we start doing these previews against the Cardinals, we can put this game behind us, man, and move on to hopefully a victory and even this thing out and get the 1-1, man. I appreciate you pulling up today, especially after, trekking all the way up to New York, getting back down here to Maryland, and, having to just soak in that L from the Dallas Cowboys, our division rival. That's real tough right there. Shout out to Fairs or Fares. I don't know if I'm saying that wrong. Muthana. I might be saying that wrong, but shout out to the homie FM. I'm going to call him right now. As you rattled off those notes, it just got sadder and sadder. LOL, damn. I know, man. Y'all, that's how I do, man. I'm going to set us up, put us at our lowest low, and I'm going to try to bring us back up and talk about some of the positives, but I don't know how much of that we're going to be able to do today. It was mostly negative in that game. But I appreciate you pulling up, man, and rocking out with us today, man. I hope this helps you out today, man, on this Monday afternoon. Shout out to homie Zach G one time for the $1.99 super chat. He said, why did we stop running in the first quarter? So annoying. Yeah, you look at the only success that the New York Giants had offensively was that first drive. 6 of the 7 plays were runs. You get out there. I want to say it was a penalty and a bad snap from JMS, and that knocked us out of, really trying to get into the end zone. They had to settle for a field goal that gets blocked, and now you're running the other way. Cowboys getting touchdown on us. And, yeah, y'all know us over here, man. We scream RTDB all the time. Run the damn ball. Run the damn ball. I don't know what's going on. I'm going to get off into that as soon as we get off these super chats for sure, man. I got some numbers I talked about from the last show, and I got some new numbers we're going to talk about and see why. See the why. Like, why is this happening? But shout out to Zach G one time in the building. Shout out to the homie Sebastian one time, man. Sac passe mon cher. I hope all is well, man. Shout out to all my Zoes in the building one time. He says, O-line hasn't been good for a decade. Needs fixing. Listen, man, when I started the podcast, for those of y'all that have been rocking with us since day one in 2019 when we drafted Daniel Jones, we talked about this. The first show, I'm on record saying we're going to bring in the hog mollies. We're going to bring in the hog mollies. Man, 2019 is 5 years ago, man. Like, 2019 season is long and gone. and we still don't got an offensive line. And I'll throw this out there a little bit. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but any thought that comes to my mind, I want to get it off and talk about it, right? When you look at the 2019 season, right, and I believe the 2018 season is when we brought in Nate Solder, right? And he struggled. Nate Solder struggled. And this is not going to be anything to deflect any of the bad play that Nate Solder put out there as a New York Giant, right? But we brought in Nate Solder that year or whatever. And he came in and he struggled for 8 games, right? I did notice, though, in the back half of the season, I forget who the right guard was that we brought in. It might have been Patrick Omama, I think, possibly. I can't remember who it was, but we picked up somebody mid-season, right? And the offensive line was, like, kind of fixed for a little bit there. And I'm looking at it like, what is fixing this? And for, like, 8 games, we looked a lot better on the offensive line, and Eli Manning was looking okay. Could keep him upright, and he had the awareness that when the defenders got close to him, Eli would just fall down on the ground. At least he could see it coming, right? When we made the switch to Daniel Jones after 2 games, I noticed a major regression in not only Nate Solder's game, but that entire offensive line. Because back then, especially in 2019, Daniel Jones had a major pocket presence problem, right? And he just couldn't see it coming. And he will hold on to the ball like way too long. Don't forget the 19 fumbles. I always talk about it. 11 lost. 6 of them were scoop and scores. It's really 5 of them were scoop and scores, but the 6th one, they scooped it, damn near scored, got knocked down at the inch-yard line. So I just say 6 scoop and scores, right? So when you're an offensive lineman, to me, it's the same thing, like the same one hand wash the other concept that happens with a pass rush and a secondary. Janoris Jenkins talked about this when he was a Giant. He was like, if we're back there covering these wide receivers for 8 seconds, no one's going to be able to do that, right? And I think the same thing goes, and it's not as drastic and extreme with Daniel Jones on the offensive line, but the same principle applies. If you have a quarterback that's holding on to the ball longer, it's going to make the job for your offensive line more difficult. And I will say this, it's more difficult. I can say this confidently. It is more difficult to block for quarterbacks like Daniel Jones than it is to block for quarterbacks like Eli Manning, Dak Prescott. Those quarterbacks are getting rid of the ball in a second. And Sebastian, you are 100% right. The offensive line has been straight up garbage. That's just what it is. Y'all know me over here, man. I like to focus on the skill positions. I talk about wide receivers, running backs, quarterbacks most of the time, right? Tight ends. Then I go to the secondary. I go into the trenches last because when I played ball, I played quarterback, and then I got moved to a wide receiver. I like the skill positions offensively, so I like to focus on them. But we all know you're not going to win the game if you can't win the battle of the trenches. That's it. You have to have people up front, and you got to have them dogs up front that can give your quarterback at least a little bit of time. If you don't have that, I've said this numerous times last year, there are quarterbacks in the NFL that need a running game, and there are quarterbacks in the NFL that don't need a running game. Josh Allen is a quarterback that does not need a running game. Lamar Jackson is a quarterback that does not need a great running back behind him, right? Jalen Hurts is a quarterback that does not need a great running back behind him. Jalen Hurts got that dude Jordan Howard paid just a couple seasons ago because he had Jordan Howard looking good because Jalen Hurts can run that RPO like a damn god. He runs that RPO great. He runs it great, right? Other quarterbacks, I talked to the Beard about this a lot last year. A lot of these other quarterbacks, the Taylor Heineke's of the world, and I'm not comparing Daniel Jones straight up to Taylor Heineke, but guys like Taylor Heineke, Marcus Mariota, even Matt Ryan, at that stage in his career last year, maybe even a year before that. It's a ton of quarterbacks. Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield. These guys all need a running game. They all need a running game, right? And if they don't have it, things are going to get extremely dicey. I think that Sam Howell, in the little small sample size I've seen from him, same thing goes. He needs a running game. Most quarterbacks need it. And if you don't need a running game, that's when I start to put you in that conversation of elite. I don't think we're dealing with an elite quarterback situation, so we need a wall up front. We definitely need to build a wall up front. That's just what it is. Shout out to the homie one time, Bear315 in the building. Says next draft, we should draft all linemen, see if we can hit on any. Andrew Thomas is our only hit for like the past 10 years. You're right about Andrew Thomas being the only hit on the offensive line. That's for sure. We've missed on all of them, on every last one of them. I can remember a license plate guy was saying this going into the season last year. This is the Giant overreaction, so you're welcome to overreact all day long because I'm going to overreact today a ton, y'all. I'm going to overreact so much today, right? But I do think this is an overreaction as well. Like, you can't go into a draft and just address all offensive linemen. I think we've been trying to address everything else, and there's an elephant in the room. And I do think it's the quarterback as well. And I'm not saying that he's not under duress and his offensive line is good and it's all on the quarterback. I'm not saying that, right? But, like, I said this in the spaces, and I've said this a lot. Shout out to Mike Too Nice, who DM'd me when he heard me say this in the spaces. He was like, yo, that's a great quote. I don't know if that's your quote or where you got that from, but that's an amazing quote. The best offensive lineman is a decisive quarterback. 1,000%. And if you look at our defensive line going up against Dak Prescott last night, granted, he didn't have to throw the ball that much. He only threw the ball 20-something times, and his completion percentage was around 50%. Wasn't that great, right? But he's getting rid of that ball as soon as he hits that back foot. And I don't think he's the best at it, obviously. Tom Brady's been the best at it over his career. And you wonder why a guy like Tom Brady, who's not that mobile, is never near the top of the league as far as quarterbacks who are being sacked. It's because he's the most decisive. He ain't going to let you get him. Aaron Rodgers is the same exact way. He is not going to let you get to him. He's going to throw the ball away, or he's going to throw the ball in only a place where his wide receiver can get it. So you're going to hear that statement a lot during this podcast. I think you can only go so far where you're addressing only, offensive line and only all the other things that are around the quarterback until you got to actually go around and address the actual quarterback. I think that's very important. So my homie's in the car right now. I see he just pulled up. I know his time is extremely limited. So we're going to pivot a little bit here. I'm going to bring in our guest here today that I know a lot of y'all have been waiting on, man. And this is my homie, man. Like I told y'all before in the opening, Peter Rosenberg has held me down in countless situations, man, and been a guy who's been a mentor to me and also has put me in a lot of positions, man, to be able to succeed as a hip-hop artist and a producer in this game. The one blemish on Peter Rosenberg's resume for me is I can remember this one time in his apartment with me, Kev Brown, and a couple others. I did a freestyle in there, right? And I bodied this freestyle. And Peter looked up after I bodied the freestyle, and he was like, Awthentik, I hate to tell you this, bro, but I wasn't recording. And we had to go back and redo the whole freestyle, and I definitely did not kill it on the second one. The first one was much more doper. But y'all know what it is, man. Make some noise for my homie one time. And let's get some biceps in the chat one time for my homie Peter Rosenberg in the building one time. And let me drag him over here. Let's make sure your audio is good. How you feeling, Peter?
Okay, are you able to hear me?
Yes, everything is good, man. How you living?
I'm great. I'm disappointed to hear that story. That's the nightmare scenario. You know what I mean? It's nothing worse. I mean, the only thing worse is if it's like a full podcast or a show, but nothing worse than, hey, I didn't hit record. So I'm disappointed, but I'm powering through. And, somehow your video and audio is always more flawless and perfect than my solid video and audio tends to be.
Like, even though we have the same setup, right?
Somehow yours is always tighter.
Yeah, I feel you on that, man. So I'm going to bring up a guy here. I want to just show a quick clip, and then we're going to get to talking about this guy. I want to start with your game, and let me give you some of the rules here, how we do on Giant Overreaction. I'm going to pull up a tweet after I show you this clip, right? And when I show you this tweet, I want you to say if that tweet is an overreaction or if it's not an overreaction and you're going to take the under. Sounds simple enough, right?
Yep.
All right, let's talk about him because the Washington Commanders got a victory yesterday in a tough battle against the Cardinals, who are a team that a lot of people were overlooking. So let's talk about this man one time.
Steps up, takes off, inside the 10, the 5, touchdown.
Peter, let's talk about this man, Sam Howell. My buddy BT Giants talked about this a couple of days ago on his Twitter. This is the statement that came up, and a lot of people were dogging him in his Twitter thread or X thread. He said, statistically, Sam Howell will have a better season than Daniel Jones, and this was before the game. Now, I'm going to let the chat kind of bring in their votes as well, but what's your thoughts on this one? Do you think that this is an overreaction, or do you think there's some truth to this, and you're going to take the under on this one?
Here's my problem is to have really said anything. You said that tweet came before yesterday?
Yes. Oh, and let me add something to the rules for you. You can take the push. You can take the push and not give an answer on it and say you need a couple more games to see, and then we can revisit this maybe later in the season.
Well, listen, I guess I'll take the push because it is certainly possible. I've never been super duper impressed by Daniel Jones. I'm one of those people in the New York media who's very on the fence. Like I need to see more. Obviously yesterday was not what you were looking to see. But it was important to see. The issue I take with it, and I'm a guy who felt very positive about Sam Howell, probably more positive before the game than I felt after. But
Yeah.
I just think it's impossible to make that statement before yesterday's game. Like, Sam Howell on preseason tape and week 18 last year,
Yeah.
the bottom line is I think everyone's just guessing until you see these real games. And, after one game this season and week 18 last year, Sam to me is still someone I have excitement about, but I have questions about. So sort of like Daniel Jones. Unfortunately, in the case of Jones, we're here saying it 3 years later. I really hope that's not the case with Sam Howell, but I mean, he had great moments yesterday. He showed you he's clearly a gamer. He has that same heart that you loved, I think, in Taylor Heineke. He showed he's that kind of guy too. The problem is he didn't show you yet that he's a much better player than Taylor Heineke.
Right.
The turnover actually was sort of rookie Daniel Jones-esque, that putting the ball on the ground and giving up a touchdown late in the first half. That was a disaster. You have to see someone more careful with the football. And
Facts.
then, the pick was a deflection. We can talk about that. But I think the pass that really worried me was that ball that was about 3 feet behind Terry McLaurin over the middle of the field. That was a really worrisome pass that he threw. So listen, we just don't know yet, man. We're guessing. I definitely saw some things I liked, but I also definitely saw some reasons for concern.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, and I think that Sam Howell struggles from some of the same things Daniel Jones did early in his career, and he struggled with last night, which is holding on to the ball too long and trying to play a bit of hero ball. Like the play is breaking down. I went to the Commanders training camp, and one thing I noticed about Sam Howell is every time he tries to peel out of the pocket, he does that little reverse thing where he kind of like turns his back to the defender and tries to make it to the outside. Mm-hmm. These quarterbacks, I think, need to learn how to step up just a little bit more. It's more dangerous, obviously, when you have to step up in that pocket, man, and kind of navigate the trenches in between the two guards and whatnot. You can get yourself into some serious trouble. We've seen some bad knee injuries from quarterbacks right there in that range of the field and whatnot. So I agree with you on that. I'm with you on this one. I'm going to take the push as well on this one. I want to see a little bit more from Sam Howell, but I do think both these quarterbacks have similar tools. They're both semi-mobile. They got decent arms. They can spin the football. They can make most of the throws. It's really a mental thing with these guys. And I do think that there are two quarterbacks who rely on a lot around them. Like, I was just talking about this before you came on air. I look at Sam Howell as a quarterback who definitely needs a decent running game as well. And I think that Daniel Jones is dealing with the same thing. Like, coaching-wise, they're just not putting the ball in Saquon Barkley's hands. To see Saquon get less carries than Daniel Jones did last night, for me, was extremely disheartening. So what did you see in that game last night? I kind of wanted to pivot that. Do you think that this was a game plan issue, or do you think that the Giants were just outmatched by the Dallas Cowboys?
Oh, man, that was so bad. That was so bad beginning to end, man. I took no great satisfaction from seeing that. I guess the only bit of satisfaction I took was I feel like a lot of people up here sort of laugh me off when I talk about how bad I think that Eagles playoff game was, and how it really showed me that even cool that they got out there and they beat Minnesota and they got some of the wins they got late in the season, the fact that they weren't even able to play ball with Philly in any way, to me, was worrisome. I don't like really care. I know it's the beginning of a rebuild. Okay, cool. But then last night you saw kind of a continuation of that game. They had nothing. Like, they had nothing. So yeah, man, I don't know. I think you can't say it's just game planning, because we saw so much we liked game plan wise last year with this football team. So to me, it wasn't a game plan thing exclusively. These were players who were not prepared, were not ready for the spotlight. Horrible play. It was bad. Everyone got a 0 yesterday, man. That was a horrible performance.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And now it's 78-7 in our last two games when you combine that divisional game against the Philadelphia Eagles and last night against the Dallas Cowboys. So the Giants are on a streak that they don't want to live in. I mean, it's been extremely bad. I'm going to give two more overreactions. I'm going to get you up out of here. I know you want a time crunch. You headed to do some more talk about football, I imagine. You probably got a real busy day here.
Well, I'm heading to the murder scene right now.
So you headed to MetLife right now.
I'm headed to the scene of the crime to get everybody ready for the Jets game. Hopefully there won't be a second. So hopefully it doesn't become a double homicide.
I hope so. I'm actually kind of rooting for the Jets tonight, man. I watched a lot of Hard Knocks. I want to see Aaron Rodgers go out there and get back to his true form. But let's get to this next overreaction. Let me see how you feel about this one real quick, and we'll see how the group and the family in the chat also feel about this one as well. Love this one. This one came out today. This one is from a Washington Commanders fan. He's at Cashinals on Twitter right now. He said, nobody can say the Commanders are a lock for fourth place in the NFC East after watching the Giants tonight. You think that's an overreaction, or do you think that the Washington Commanders have pretty much shown that they won't be at the bottom of the division again this year?
I picked the Commanders to come in third.
Okay.
Last week when we did pick. So yesterday really didn't do anything to change my mind. Yesterday was actually exactly how I saw this season. I really hope that the Commanders are better than they were yesterday. I do think they were especially bad. And I'm sure the Giants will not be as bad as they were either. But really what I see is I just see one team that's figuring it out with a new quarterback, but has a lot of talent other places in the Commanders. And in the Giants, I see a team who caught a lot of breaks last year, who I just don't see taking a big step forward this year. Guys, I do not believe the hype that they just picked up Travis Kelce and Darren Waller. I don't.
Yeah.
I think Waller's a nice player when he's available. That when is a big when, considering we were worried about whether or not he'd be ready to go yesterday. So I just think people got a little bit too hyped off the Giants winning a playoff game. And it's not that I think the Commanders will be much better. It's that I think they'll just be a game or two better. And I don't expect to be overly impressed with this Giants team. I know I sound like a hater. I don't think I am. Like, I don't hate the Giants. I don't like when they're bad, especially having to be on the radio every day. I just feel like last year things broke a certain way that really gave you sort of an inconclusive look about who they really are. I don't, for them to improve off last season, you telling me that they're going to win 2 playoff games this year? That's not what I expect. I think last year was the aberration, and this year I expect them to kind of hover around 8 wins.
Yeah, that's exactly where I picked them at, actually. I have them at 8-9 this year. So you got the Commanders winning probably a couple more games than the Giants, having the Giants in the basement of the NFC.
Yeah, I have the Commanders at 9-8, 10-7. If Howell turns out to be a player, 10-7. If Howell turns out to be they'll be right in that 8-9, 9-8.
What about the top of the division? Do you see Dallas or do you see the Eagles?
I see the Eagles. I like the Eagles to win the whole thing this year. Listen, I don't believe in the Cowboys ever. I don't care what they did last night in week 1. That was a nice – listen, them beating the Giants at MetLife, what does that even count for? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we've seen this story before.
Yeah.
The question with that team is always, what do they do come December? And, I mean, I hate to say it because I despise the Eagles, but I don't see anyone stopping the Eagles in the NFC this year.
Yeah, I think if the Cowboys could get the right path to get to the championship game, I think that they could see themselves in the Super Bowl. I think they do have the roster. But the biggest question to me is, can their offense really put up the points against the better defenses, the better teams? Because even last night, their offense didn't look fantastic. I mean, they did make some plays out there. But we know with Dak Prescott, with Stephen A. Smith always saying what can go wrong will go wrong, that's usually the case in the playoffs, especially when they're going up against the 49ers. So I have the Eagles at the top of the division as well. I did have the Giants above the Commanders entering last night's game, but I think you guys put up a better performance, granted against a team that doesn't look as good as the Dallas Cowboys. But, just overall, when I gauged what I saw from the quarterback position, your wide receivers, your running back, there were some good things out there, but the mistakes is what Washington has to clean up. So I'm going to go to this last overreaction. I'm going to get you up out of here. I know your time is limited, man. And this one actually comes from former New York Giants kicker Lawrence Tynes, and this is probably the most egregious one I have on the list here. A lot of Giants fans were walking into this game extremely confident, and just a couple of days before the game, Lawrence Tynes tweeted this one out. He said, Giants quarterback Daniel Jones will be in the MVP race this season. This one is super easy for me. I do not think that Daniel Jones is an elite quarterback at this moment in time in his career, and I don't even think it's going to be close. I mean, you just started the season off with 2 interceptions. He had all of 5 last year. He could have had 3 or 4 interceptions yesterday. What do you think about this one? Is this an extreme overreaction to you, or are you going to take the under or the push on this one?
No, that's an extreme overreaction. How about this? I'll go overreaction. I'll double that overreaction. I don't know if he'll ever be in the MVP race. I don't think that's what they have back there. I mean, I could see a year in which he puts up great numbers. I could see that for sure with the right team. But, like, I really think that Daniel Jones is a guy you can win with, but not a guy who you will win because of. You know, and I think that's a big distinction. You know, I think could he have an Eli-like year where he takes them on a run and he just looks like a stone cold killer in big spots? Yeah, I could see that. I don't ever see him having a season where I'm like, oh my God, 44 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, you know, 4,800 yards. That's not who I see so far, man. And like I said, I really know I sound like a hater to Giants fans, but man, last night was more proof of, like, I get it. The line was terrible and nothing went their way, but the great quarterbacks, like guys who can really be great quarterbacks, even when nothing is going their way, find a way to do something.
Facts.
You know, when nothing is working, when your O-line is awful, when everything's failing, we've seen it with the greats, man. And yesterday he showed in a situation when nothing's working, he's not going to be able to generate anything on his own. I don't think that's in his skill set.
I'm right there with you, man. I don't think, you know, the fans in our base here and in the chat here, shout out to everybody in the chat. We got over 200 people in here today. I don't think they're going to look at you as a hater. I think they're going to look at you as a realist. I've prepped them for this landing here. You know, if they tune into me, they know I'm not one of these glass half full type of New York Giants fans. I'm going to call it like I see it, and I'm critical. I'm very critical, especially of the quarterback position. So, yeah, I definitely agree with you on a lot of what you said. And when it comes to can Daniel Jones be an MVP or even be mentioned in the race this season, I think that's an absolute non-factor. I don't think that's going to happen this year. And I know a lot of takes that come from Lawrence Tynes. They seem to be very pro-Giants, and I'm sure that's because he was a former Giant. Shout out to Lawrence Tynes one time. Peter, man, before I get you up out of here, man, anything you want to plug, any shout-outs you want to do before we send you away, man?
Nah, man, I appreciate you guys for having me on. I appreciate what you guys do. You do an awesome job with it. Shouts to all the Giants fans out there. Even though I am a Commanders fan, and I took some slight pleasure in the misery that was yesterday. I also felt empathy and sympathy because, man, that is just the poor. I went to the Sean Taylor when they put Sean Taylor's number up in the Ring of Fame in Washington, and it poured on us all day, and we lost. It's one of the worst experiences in sports. Yesterday was why I consume football from home almost exclusively. Like, who wants to be there for that? It's just so brutal. But listen, man, I think the Giants will still be competitive this season. And I said this last year. Listen, Daniel Jones has skills. I think if the Commanders had Daniel Jones last year and not Taylor Heineke, I think they would have won more games. I do think he has a skill set that is above, you know, the tier that Taylor Heineke is, which is capable backup. But is he a superb starter? Not that we've seen so far. And I certainly hope that as Commanders fans, we find out Powell turns out to be a stud. You know, listen, he took a really big hit early in that game yesterday. Yeah. Definitely could have been a factor. And I hope that we have our guy. I just don't want to be where y'all are at in 3 years trying to figure out if you have your guy. All we're all looking for in this league, all of us, is just to find that guy. And I hope for both of our sakes we find him.
Real quick, what you think about the contract? What you think about the Daniel Jones contract? Yeah.
I mean, listen, it was I'm MetLife Stadium is all my right, guys. I'm pulling up. Listen, it felt crazy at the time. It definitely felt crazy at the time, like $40 million. But now when you look at it, he's about where he should be, towards the middle of the pack. And in a year, it'll be even more in the middle of the pack. So I don't take major issue with the contract. If you have a guy who you think can win you any games in this league, it comes at an obscene price. Yeah. And they did what they had to do. I think they showed you with their words and actions leading up to it that they weren't desperate to give him the money. So it is what it is.
Facts, man. Appreciate you pulling up, Peter, man. Means a lot, man. I'll hit you up on the text, man, see what's going on this week, man. See what's up.
Awthentik, my dude. Thank you, man.
All right, bro. Be good.
Peace.
All right, y'all. Peter Rosenberg, man, pulled up, gave us his thoughts on the New York Giants, man. That's awesome, man. I appreciate him taking the time, man. He's about to head to MetLife right now. He's going to be down there for that Jets game tonight. There's 2 back-to-back games at MetLife. That's awesome, and I think the Cowboys are actually coming back up here to MetLife to take on the Jets next week, man. So we're going to get off into a couple more Giant overreactions, man. I'm going to see how the chat – I couldn't keep my eye on the chat during Peter's interview there. So we'll catch up to the chat a little bit. But big salute to all of y'all, man, for popping in today, man, on today's edition of the Giant Overreaction. All right, man, let's get back into this game a little bit, see what the chat is talking, man. I hope y'all enjoyed that segment, man. I know I did, man. Peter's definitely a super cool dude. I think in the New York sports market, he gets a little bit of a bad rap. But that's one of my homies, man. I've known Peter since probably about like 1999, 2000. I remember when he was first doing his videos that actually led to him getting the job at Hot 97. I remember when he first got the job there and he was telling us all about it, man. So big shout out to Peter, man. He's been a big advocate for the DMV hip-hop scene for a really long time, man. Definitely support everything he's doing, man. Support that album he dropped just a couple years ago, man. Real Late with Rosenberg. That was super dope. A bunch of dope NY hip-hop features on there as well. Let me catch up to y'all, man, see what's going on with the chat one time. Oh, it's a ton of y'all in here. Okay, that's what's up. Let me see. Let me just scroll back down, see where I left off at. And Zach, I got that one. I got that one. I got that one. Okay, let me see. John's in the building. I see my man John in the building. What's up? Okay, so we're going to start right here. Shout out to John one time. Pulling up in the building, man, with the $5 super chat. He says, we know our O-line has been bad, but Giants have always prided themselves in having pass rushers. I'm more worried about having no pass rush at all. A lot of people are talking about this too, man. Like, this is super important. When you look at all the New York Giants teams of the past, and forget just the New York Giants, man, like across the league, look at the teams that dominated this past week. They all doing it starting with the pass rush right up front. That's a number one priority for a lot of these teams. And to see, you know, I don't know if we're like overhyping maybe what we have. We did get a little, you know, some depth on that defensive line. Ashawn Robinson, they brought in Boogie. You know, we got Azeez Ojulari. We have Kayvon Thibodeau. But there has been a letdown on that defensive line. We're struggling to get to the quarterback. So I'm with you, man. It starts in the trenches. You need them both. It'd be nice to have pass rushers first, but I want offensive linemen as well. I think John makes a really good point here that a lot of people are talking about, but a lot of people aren't talking about as well. I think everybody woke up and they wanted to blame the offensive line. You got to look at that defensive line as well, too. And Dak Prescott was doing a great job of getting rid of that ball real early in that game as well. And that hurts a defensive line. When you're trying to pin your ears back and the ball's out before you can even get a couple of steps on your man, it's definitely disheartening as a pass rusher as well. Shout out to the homie Hyphen Wade one time in the building for the $4.99 super chat. He says, major adjustments are in order. We have to be better going forward. This one hurts, especially versus Dallas. I'm still in shock. On to Arizona. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think this one's going to linger. It's going to linger for me. I haven't really done my rounds as far as checking out all the media outlets, seeing what my homies are talking on Twitter. I haven't jumped into any spaces yet, nothing like that. And, I think it's going to linger for me for another couple of days. And I got to do the recap tomorrow with the beard here on the NFC East. So we're going to be talking about that. I got to do a deep dive and do some research on here and try to present a way that the New York Giants can climb out of this. So for me, it's going to be a couple days, man. But, yeah, it's on to Arizona as fast as we can possibly do that. Appreciate Hyphen Wade being in the building one time and rocking with us. Zach G sent in the $1.99 super chat and says it was DJ Fluker in 2018. I don't think it was Fluker, though. It was somebody. I feel like it was somebody else with a different last name. I feel like it started with an O. Double check on that for me, Zach. And maybe we can get to the right name because I feel like it wasn't Fluker. I feel like it was somebody else, but I appreciate that effort one time. Shout out to Mr. The Hardaway one time in the building for the $5 super chat. He says, end of the second quarter, down by 26, 3rd and 15, and DJ falls on the ball instead of throwing it into the end zone. Just sad. For some reason, I can't think of the exact play that you're referring to right now, but yeah, that's definitely sad. You got to know situational football, especially when you're down by that much. And you got to take advantage of these third downs. I mean, third down, if you don't get it on third down, it's likely that you're not going to be out there for fourth down with an opportunity. You're probably going to end up punting, especially on 3rd and 15. So we've seen that stuff, man. I wouldn't say a lot from Daniel Jones, but there have been a couple of games I can remember in the Philadelphia Eagles blowout in the divisional game where on a third down, he rolled out and took a sack for like 4 or 5 yards, damn near knocked us out of field goal range. So those little mental lapses, those can't happen. That's for damn sure. But shout out to Mr. The Hardaway one time for supporting the channel, man. I appreciate you pulling up. Shout out to the SOS Archive one time in the building for that $4.99 super chat. He says, I know it's early and the line is majority of the problem, but we need a higher ceiling quarterback who can evade pressure if this line doesn't shore up. Yeah, man, I've been talking about Justin Fields the whole offseason, and a lot of people know, if you saw the first video that I dropped this year in the offseason, I talked about how I wasn't a believer in the contract for Daniel Jones, but it is what it is. We are where we are, and I like the moves that Joe Shane, made in the offseason to bring in these weapons. The first video I talked about Darren Waller, bringing in Jalen Hyatt, getting healthy next year, bringing back some of the core pieces that actually worked last season. And I'm with you on this. When I look at quarterbacks around the league, I've been extremely high on Justin Fields, the leap that I think Justin Fields is going to make. And I'm public with it. I talk about it a lot on Twitter. So when Justin Fields had a mediocre game yesterday, everyone was flooding my mentions like, hey, man, don't be talking about Justin Fields no more. Stop talking about Justin Fields. He's not a better quarterback than Daniel Jones, which I haven't said that, but I kind of, in my heart of hearts, feel like the upside of Justin Fields is better than Daniel Jones. But, got attacked heavy for that, right? That was before the game. A lot of people were saying, like, y'all really think Justin Fields is better than Daniel Jones? Well, keep that same energy. Keep talking about it. And then Daniel Jones goes out here in the second half, damn near barely has 30 yards through the air. Awful performance. So pump the brakes is what I'll tell Giants fans. Use the whole scope of everything to be able to assess what's going on. Now, when you look at all these quarterbacks who are mobile and the younger ones especially, the reason why I was super high on Justin Fields is because I look at it like this. You pay Daniel Jones either a $40 million contract. At the time, I thought $30 million was even going to be a little bit high for Daniel Jones. We could go all the way back to the offseason where when me and the boys from New York Revival were talking with Tiki Barber on the podcast, Tiki Barber said they were going to pay Daniel Jones like $18 million a year back then. A year changes, and yeah, the quarterback market was inflated a little bit, but to go from 18 to 40 is kind of ridiculous. I look at a guy like Justin Fields making just $4 million a year for the next 2 seasons with a fifth-year option as a better option. That's just my opinion on it. Going into the season, that's what I thought. And I'm not going to let this one game just completely make me say, like, oh, my God, you were so right on Justin Fields. We got a lot of football left to play. Both of these guys could fall flat on their face or they could get better. But I'm with you on this, SOS. I do think that, like, not having a quarterback who can laterally move in the pocket is a problem for the New York Giants because up front we don't have the guys. It's kind of what I was talking about earlier. A decisive quarterback is the best offensive lineman. When you have a guy who can either be decisive and say, hey, I'm going to run, because Daniel Jones is his best when he just doesn't see it and just takes off. Lamar Jackson does things like that. I'd say Jalen Hurts does things like that. And those guys can maneuver in the pocket in a consistent fashion. Like, Daniel Jones, I think, struggles with that. There were 5 quarterbacks over the weekend who were pressured over 45% of their dropbacks, Daniel Jones being at the top of that list, right? And I think a lot of those pressures come from not being decisive with the ball because all the quarterbacks that are on this list, they struggle with that. They all hold on to the ball. Justin Fields is on this list. He was pressured on 56.3% of his dropbacks yesterday. And we know last year, Justin Fields, when it comes to time to throw, he was the quarterback who had the longest time to throw. That happens with a lot of mobile quarterbacks. Now, don't get it twisted and think time to throw means that your offensive line is good. No. Normally, it means it's the mobile quarterbacks who are buying time, and their offensive line is getting them killed. So the 3 other quarterbacks outside of Daniel Jones on this list was C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, and Kenny Pickett. You see these guys, you got 2 rookies on here, a guy in his 2nd year, Justin Fields entering his 3rd year, and then Daniel Jones is just an anomaly on this list, a quarterback entering his 5th year who really should not have problems holding on to the ball, and I think he still does. There's still an awareness issue. The reading leverage of pressure I still think is a problem for Daniel Jones, but I can't put it all on him. All these quarterbacks are holding the ball too long, and all these quarterbacks coaches, with Daniel Jones being at the bottom of this list and Justin Fields being at the top. Justin Fields, if you watched every play of that game yesterday, his coaching staff was not setting him up for good down and distance, especially on 2nd down. Every time you look up, it's 2nd and 12, 2nd and 14 for Justin Fields, right? With Daniel Jones, I just think the Giants offense just could not get going, right? But at the same time, I look at the coach. I got to look at the coach. When you see these defenses pinning their ears back and coming after your quarterback, you have to find a way to relinquish some of that pressure off your quarterback. I don't know. I'm not a genius, man, but maybe running the ball could help, possibly. You look at the Dan Orlovsky stat that I talked about, 65 plays with 30 of them being for 0 gain or negative yards. I don't got the numbers in front of me for Saquon Barkley, but, go and tell me how many runs Saquon had for negative yards. I don't remember seeing many. So if you're throwing the ball and you're getting all these negative plays and all these 0-yard gains, right, why not just hand the ball off to your running back and try to relieve some of that pressure off Daniel Jones. Like I said, man, I ain't no genius over here, but I'm not somebody who also doesn't know a lick about football. Like, run the damn ball. I mean, that's an easy way to at least take time off the clock. And if you're going to get blown out, you might as well take some time off the clock and keep Dak Prescott on the sidelines, and maybe the score would look like it's 24-0, 26-0, or 19-0, instead of getting blown out 40-0, which is just an absolute disgrace when you have your quarterback getting more carries than your running back. So, and I want to talk about that a little bit. I think this is a good time to talk about that. Shout out to SOS for that $4.99 super chat as well, too. And let me get to these other ones real quick, and I'll dive into that Saquon point a little bit more. Shout out to the brother L one time who's been rocking with us, Cowboys fan. He said, this ain't Pete, this is Mr. Rosenberg with the suit. Yeah, he was looking fly in the suit, getting ready to do his, his corporate work at MetLife tonight, man. Big shout out to Peter for pulling up again, and shout out to brother L for supporting the channel. Shout out to Hamilton one time in the building, man. That's a big $20 super chat. That definitely goes a long way to support this channel, man. I definitely appreciate that, Hamilton. Hamilton says, they say DJ got heart, and that's great. That's true. He says, you can have heart to step into the ring with Floyd. Doesn't mean you're going to win. You need to have that dog mentality to take it to the fight. Daniel Jones just doesn't have that. And, the rest of this team doesn't have that either. Somebody talked about this earlier. I want to say it was Ryan Clark on ESPN. He was like, you look at the first play when they threw that flag, when Daniel Jones tried to slide and he got his head knocked off. Where was his teammates? Go back and look at the one that happened to Sam Howell. When Sam Howell got hit on that sideline, all of those linemen are rushing over. They don't care if they get a penalty. They're going to push somebody. They're going to start a fight. They're going to get chippy with you. Instead, you see Daniel Jones get his block knocked off, and the Giants are just kind of looking around like, Saquon Barkley in particular this year. And I think it has to do with the contract talk. I'll keep it real with you, man. I'm going to keep it funky with you right here. A lot of people not going to like this. I think that he's not invested as the leader no more because the New York Giants have not invested in him as the leader no more. Imagine that. You get drafted as a rookie. They take you with the number 2 pick. They calling you a generational talent. The whole time you here, you the only thing going for the New York Giants for the whole time here, outside of when you weren't healthy. And when you weren't healthy, it got super ugly, right? And when it comes time to do your contract, they tiptoeing around it. And they don't want to pay you the money. They franchise tag you. They allow the franchise tag deadline to pass. And then they, just to get you to camp, sign you to a 1-year deal. How you think you're going to be feeling about that? You think you're going to want to step out there and put your life on the line for a team that is not showing you the loyalty that you have shown them? That's just me. I see the nuances. I ain't see a guy in Saquon Barkley out there hyping up his squad. They got, man, Sal was talking about this in the space earlier. They got Jihad Ward leading the New York Giants out on the field. They got 10 captains out there. And of all the captains they got leading us out on the field, it's Jihad Ward. And I would love to sit up here and say no shade towards Jihad Ward, right? But Jihad Ward went on a blocking spree on the internet on people who are Giants fans on Twitter, me included. I'm blocked by Jihad Ward simply for pointing out the fact that he was irresponsible with Xavier McKinney for going to Cabo and riding ATVs in the offseason. We talking about a guy who's a backup leading your team out there. Why isn't that Saquon? Why isn't that Daniel Jones? Why isn't that Dexter Lawrence? Why isn't that Xavier McKinney? Why isn't that Kayvon Thibodeau? Why isn't that Darren Waller? Somebody got to tell me this, because it makes no sense to have a guy like Jihad Ward leading your team out there. To me, it screams that you don't got leaders in that locker room. That's what it says to me. And the way that these contracts were handled, it might not quite be the disease of me that my man Lombardi was talking about, Mike Lombardi, but it's something to it. It's something to it. There was no hype for this game at home to open up the year against the Dallas Cowboys. None. And then as soon as that field goal gets blocked, you see a team crawl back into their turtle shell and get ready for next week. They clocked out. I don't understand it. So, yeah, DJ definitely don't got that dog, and if you don't got that dog in you in a vocal fashion, then you better have that dog in you out there with your play on the field, which is what Eli Manning was to this franchise and which is what Daniel Jones is not to this franchise right now. So I 100% agree with you on this, Hamilton. Salute to you for sending in a big donation like that for us, man. That means a lot to this channel, man. Make sure you pull up to our recap tomorrow. We're going to go in depth across the NFC East and talk about this a lot more. And I wish I could, really keep my eyes on the main chat today, a little bit more, but it's so much going on here. And I don't want to make this show 5 hours. The replay value is not going to be great if I make this show 5 hours. We got to keep it under 2 hours today. I'm going to try to be as concise as I possibly can be. But big shout out to Hamilton, man. That's a major donation for the channel, man. And my homie Antonio's in the building one time. BT Giants in the building. He said that was me laughing my ass off. Yeah, hey, I kept that one in the stash. I was like, man, as soon as I do the Giant overreaction week 1, I'm definitely going to bring that up. And BT Giants, he's been talking about it. He made a bet on that with somebody, too. I forget who the homie is that he made the bet with, but it's a $100 bet on the line with that. Sam Howell having a better statistic year than Daniel Jones. We'll see how it goes. I still think Daniel Jones has a good shot to have better stats than Sam Howell, but we'll see, man. Things are looking real ugly the first week, but shout out to BT one time in the building, man. All right, so I want to go over just a couple more numbers, a couple more stats, a couple of more key points that I talked about here, and one of them in particular is the New York Giants. This offseason seemed to be good, but I think that what has happened in the transition from the playoffs and the end of the season of 2022 going into the 2023 season is that the New York Giants have extremely, extremely lost their identity, and I want to talk about the man who I think should be the identity on this team. Let's talk about it, y'all, man. Saquon Barkley led the Giants with 51 rushing yards on 12 carries yesterday. That's 4.3 yards per carry, which a lot of people will look at that like, that's not that great. 4.3 yards is not that high, man. I always look back at the game from the Washington Commanders against the Philadelphia Eagles last season when the Philadelphia Eagles came into that game undefeated and the Washington Commanders knocked them off and they got a victory. I believe it was on a Monday night game where Brian Robinson averaged only 3.9 yards per carry. You got to know when you're going up against an extreme pass rush like the Philadelphia Eagles, who had 70 sacks as a unit last year, and like the Dallas Cowboys, who have led the league in takeaways 2 seasons in a row, and we know they can get after the quarterback, Micah Parsons, trying to become just the third player to have 13 sacks in his first 3 seasons, right next to Reggie White. And when you put yourself in that kind of company, for the OGs, y'all know what it is. But our identity should be running the ball. And I think Daniel Jones needs to be included in that. If you can get Saquon Barkley going, you can likely get Daniel Jones going, because when they key in on Saquon, then we'll be able to use Daniel Jones how we use him, on the boots, on the read options, on the RPOs, all that stuff. And then eventually that should be able to open up the big play down the field. In this game, 12 rushes, man, just 12 attempts for Saquon Barkley. And Daniel Jones had just one more, 13, but he had 43 yards. To me, this is not the game plan. And I know the game got away from them fairly fast because you get a blocked field goal, you get a pick six. It's starting to look like this game is out of hand, but the Beard is always talking about this with me. And shout out to my co-host, the best co-host in the goddamn country. He's always saying, don't let being down by 2 scores force you to pivot your game plan and not run the damn ball. The Beard will tell you he don't care if they down 21. Keep running the damn ball, especially in the first half. And I don't know about for y'all, but this game felt like it was an eternity. Like, I remember when the first half was over, I was like, God, it's just halftime? Are you kidding me? We are getting our teeth kicked in right now. And I didn't understand it. And a lot of that is because you're going 3 and outs and you're turning the ball over and you're not sustaining drives. And the only drive that was sustained was the first drive, where the Giants had 6 of their 7 plays were running plays. Stick to the damn run the damn ball. And some might say, well, this was the Dallas Cowboys, and the Dallas Cowboys, Saquon Barkley doesn't have good games against the Dallas Cowboys. Well, I brought this up on our last show. If you remove Saquon Barkley's performance against the Dallas Cowboys 2 years ago, where he turned his ankle early on in the game, he only had like 2 attempts in that game. These are the numbers for Saquon Barkley across his career against the Dallas Cowboys. 83.5 rushing yards, 4.5 yards per carry, which is just 2.2 more yards than he averaged yesterday. And this was the number I had beef with when we did the preview show. 13.2 attempts per game against the Dallas Cowboys, your division rivals. In 7 meetings, he's averaging 13 carries, and Saquon Barkley has never beat the Dallas Cowboys in his entire career. I wonder why. Run the damn ball. Give this man the rock. There is no excuse for him to have 12 attempts. There's no excuse, especially when you're going up against a pass rush like the Dallas Cowboys. They just pinned their ears back and just came after Daniel Jones, and you could tell. They're looking at Daniel Jones like he don't like pressure. Daniel Jones is the kind of quarterback that can make a first man possibly miss, but the Cowboys are the kind of team that when the first man missed, the pursuit is going to be coming from the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, all the way till you get to the 11th man. So Jones is not that kind of guy. He doesn't have that kind of awareness to be able to see all that coming at him, So for me, to help Daniel Jones, get a ball to Saquon Barkley, man. I don't care if he's not gaining any yards and you're going 3 and out. At least the clock is moving. And we're not just going 3 and out with no time being taken off the clock. And yeah, the Giants won the time of possession battle, but it means nothing in the grand scheme of this game when you're not giving the ball to who I still think is the best player on the New York Giants. I seen all y'all in the offseason, and when I say y'all, I mean these people on Twitter, They coming up with a hierarchy of who they think are the best players on the Giants offense, and they got Saquon Barkley down at 5. Some of them don't even have him on the list. And I don't know what kind of white stuff y'all smoking these days, but y'all smoking something if you don't think Saquon Barkley is at least at bare minimum a top 2 player on this offense. And you got to just think about how frustrating this will be. Just think about how frustrating this is. You know, for Saquon Barkley to be out here, they didn't give him his deal. I can't imagine being in his shoes. I don't pretend to try to walk in anybody's shoes. I could not imagine being in Saquon Barkley's shoes. It must be extremely disheartening and uncomfortable, you know, walking in those shoes, because you put this team on your back for so long and they don't show you any respect. They don't show you really any future loyalty, and they get you here for a 1-year contract. And they're probably going to try to franchise tag him next year or let him walk, which is going to be terrible. It's going to be terrible. And everybody thinks it's unicorns and rainbows with Joe Shane and Brian Dable. And they looked at this coaching matchup going against the Dallas Cowboys, and they look at it like, oh, Mike McCarthy, ha! I wanted Mike McCarthy as the New York Giants head coach when we got Joe Judge in here. And people laughed me off because of that. Mike McCarthy, he's had the best quarterback, arguably skill set wise, in the history of the game, and he only won 1 Super Bowl. Y'all acting like winning Super Bowls is easy. Mike McCarthy was damn sure a better head coach than Joe Judge. Damn sure. And I remember all the spaces I was in and all the round tables I was in. People, when I would say Mike McCarthy, they would laugh that off. And people thought that Mike McCarthy was going to come out here and have this Dallas Cowboys offense looking worse than Kellen Moore did. And this wasn't a big day by the Dallas Cowboys offense. You know, you look at Dak Prescott's numbers. Let me see if I got Dak Prescott's numbers up here. I think I had him in my notes somewhere on here. Yeah, Dak Prescott was 13 of 24 for 134 yards on the day, right? Not that great. But he was sacked 0 times, and I've talked about that before, 3 games in a row where Dak Prescott has not been sacked, or a Cowboys quarterback, because one of those was Cooper Rush actually last season. We didn't get to him either. So this ain't a Dak Prescott thing. This is a being decisive thing at the quarterback position. And when you look at this game, you'll say, oh, it was a blowout. You know, Dak Prescott, he didn't have a good game either. Look at the divisional round with Jalen Hurts and look at this game with Dak Prescott last night. They're damn near identical. Both had 24 attempts. Jalen Hurts was 16 of 24. Dak Prescott was 13 of 24. Dak Prescott had 143 yards through the air. Jalen Hurts had 154 yards through the air. They both threw no interceptions in this game or in those games. So these are the kind of games that if you played ball, you know. When your defense is dominant like this as a quarterback, just go out there and just don't mess up the bag, man. And that's exactly what Dak Prescott did. We talked about the over-under on the interceptions on our preview show, and I told y'all it's going to be under 1 interception in this game. Dak Prescott does not have an interception problem. He doesn't. He's got 1 year on paper where he led the league in interceptions. Great. It'd be like saying that Daniel Jones has a fumble problem, which he does not. You can't take 1 year and try to base it off 1 year. Remove the 1 year, look at the other years, and then come to your determination on that. So I don't look at this as a bad game from Dak Prescott. His wide receivers and his tight ends were letting him down left and right. Like I said, Jake Ferguson, who had a terrible game, he had 2 receptions for 11 yards on 7 targets. I told people he was going to be a big factor in this game plan. He just didn't show up, and that's not Dak Prescott's fault, right? CeeDee Lamb had 4 receptions for 77 yards on this game. They put Adoree Jackson in the slot, and they ran some great rub routes that got CeeDee Lamb open on the big play, which was a third of Dak Prescott's yardage on the day. Now, we talked about pretty much everything, and as much as I could, I tried to avoid the elephant in the room. And I want to talk about that elephant in the room. Let me check this text real quick one time. Okay. And I heard them talking about this on Undisputed this morning, and I thought this was a bold, blunt way to talk about the elephant in the room, which is the New York Giants quarterback situation.
I've been waiting patiently to put this fire out. It was the Giants. It was the Giants. Congratulations, you guys beat the Giants in Daniel Jones's overinflated contract. He should never have gotten it. Obviously, you see what he is, and you see what he's been.
So Richard Sherman, and y'all know Richard Sherman is famous for calling out Michael Crabtree as a trash wide receiver. I don't know if Michael Crabtree was quite trash. I wouldn't call him that. But he was trash that day up against Richard Sherman, and now he's pretty much saying, like, y'all know what it is with Daniel Jones. Now, this one comes from a homie from Twitter one time, COTD 1106. He said, how the F could anyone be excited about signing Daniel Jones? Y'all think this is an overreaction in the chat? Let me know. Put some O's in the chat for all my new folks and my new family in the chat today. If you think this is an overreaction and there's no truth to this, put an O in the chat. If you need the push and you want to see what Daniel Jones can do for a couple more games here, go ahead and put the push in the chat. Go ahead and put the P in the chat one time. You can also use that hand emoji one time. And if you agree with this statement on the chat, on the screen, in the chat, let me see you put a U in the chat to represent that you were taking the under. And I'll tell you how I feel about it while y'all gather up y'all answers. I felt like this. When they signed Daniel Jones to a $40 million contract, shout out to Lawrence Tynes who called it. He was like, and me and him actually got into a big argument. I don't look at him sideways off this or nothing, but when I came into his thread when he said Daniel Jones absolutely deserves $40 million, I said, listen, man, I think that Daniel Jones is a quarterback who is above average by a tick, but that kind of money is reserved for the elites. And man, did they tear me a new one. They was after me in that thread. And a lot of my homies around a Giants Twitter, you know, they were like, bro, nah, you're not wrong on that. You know, Daniel Jones is not a quarterback that should deserve $40 million. They didn't think he was a franchise quarterback. Let me know what y'all think. I think that the statement on the screen is very accurate. And right now, I'm taking the under. I agree with this. How in the hell could anyone be excited about signing Daniel Jones for that kind of money? I think it's egregious. I think it's going to be the one blemish that we see, the first blemish. I can't say the one. I'm not even that confident. But it's the first blemish that we're going to see on Joe Shane's resume. It's going to be that contract right there. And you brought in Darren Waller, and if this Darren Waller thing does not work with Daniel Jones, it's not going to work with the next quarterback. Darren Waller's probably going to be here for just a couple more years, and if his numbers do not skyrocket and get much better than 3 receptions for 30-something yards, he's not going to be here that long. And I'm not going to overreact like that off Darren Waller's performance in the Dallas Cowboys game yesterday. But we got to get better. We got to get better. Let me see what y'all talking in the chat one time here. And just get the general consensus of how everybody's feeling about this one time. Sank Zappa, he's taking under. He agrees with it. Emperor Meat says he's ass, but the excuses will continue. The excuses are definitely going to continue. I'll feel you on that. LMAO said Daniel Jones is a tight end. Y'all going crazy today. Y'all are really going crazy today. Randy says 100%. I think he agrees with that one time. Caden Wade says it's still an overreaction, just blasphemous. I could think it's an overreaction. I could. There's a debate to be made that it's an overreaction. That is blasphemous is not correct, I don't think. Blasphemous would be like when they paid Joe Burrow, being like he not worth the contract. What else we got up in here? Hyphen Wade says he's taking the push. Let me see what else. Shannon Spence is also taking the under on this. He agrees with the statement on the screen. Phobos Gaming disagrees. I think people are just overreacting after a really bad loss, which could be the case. I'm man enough to admit that. And I know that, like, that's why this show is called The Giant Overreaction, is because it's here for us to overreact. As fans, I think that, like, people have been saying this for years. People have been like, don't pay Daniel Jones, don't pay Daniel Jones, don't pay Daniel Jones. And then they paid him. And some of those people are still like, why'd they pay Daniel Jones? Why'd they pay Daniel Jones? For me, it is what it is. It is what it is. Shout out my homie Adam Costas in the building one time. Make sure y'all go check him out, man. He's got a great podcast with Mac the Giants fan. They do great work over there. He's taking it under as well. I'm with you on that, Adam. And Adam, I still got a rant from Adam from last season that I recorded. I kept it in my bag. And I was going to show it last season, but I was like, we're too in a negative space here. It was when we were losing a bunch of games in a row. And I just kept that rant. I was like, one day I'm going to bring this rant back. Adam got one of the best rants. I'm going to send it to you, Adam. It's just a great rant. Like, one day you just went off on your podcast, and I had to clip it up and keep it. I was like, this is the best way to describe everything that's going on with the quarterback position. So shout out to Adam one time. Let me see. I guess somebody said that Tyrod Taylor is better than Daniel Jones. An independent outsider chimes in and says Tyrod is not better. I think that would be an overreaction, too, to think Tyrod is better. But I don't rule out that there's a possibility that Tyrod Taylor could run this offense like Daniel Jones. The thing that I've been questioning today is, did we see Daniel Jones peak out last year? Like, I just don't know. You know, I'm not that confident in the weapons, right? Like, the weapons upgrade this year it did not have me like, oh, my God, we got them all. But we got some weapons out there. And when you bring in Darren Waller, that's a big weapon. You can't keep saying and keep blaming the weapons around, right? Eventually, you got to point the finger at what's going on. Everything has been moved around from left tackle, center, right guard, right tackle. Where was all the 12 personnel that we talked about in the offseason? I didn't see a ton of 12 personnel. Where was Daniel Bellinger? I didn't see Daniel Bellinger too much out there on the field. And Emperor Meat says, yes, he's peaked. And I don't like to put a cap on people. But like last year, Daniel Jones was extremely efficient, and now teams have tape on him. You know, Nick DeWick, shout out Nick DeWick in the building one time, man. It's my guy right here, man. Hope the football season is going well, brother. He says it is way too early to think about Tyrod Taylor. I agree with you. The same thing that applies that Emory Hunt said from CBS last year. He said if you get 3 or 4 or 5 games out of Daniel Jones where he looks like absolute trash out there, then you got to start to consider Tyrod Taylor as a starting quarterback. I think this year is probably going to be around 8, 9 games, and they still might not think about it. They might just they paid the guy $160 million. I know they didn't pay Kenny Galladay the $72 million, but he was on the roster at $72 million. And Brian Dable and Joe Shane were just like, whatever. Sit on that bench, man. We don't care how much money they're paying you. And they just wasted the money, right? Didn't care. They thought they had better talent out there that they could put on the field, and they were probably right. I don't think that's going to be the case with Daniel Jones, but they'll start to think like, damn, like did we make the wrong move? I think they'll definitely start to think about that. What else we got up in here? My man Hyphen Wade says, I don't want to go there yet, but if it continues and play is bad or slowly creeps up and flattens out, then yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a rational way to think about it, man. You can't just jump the gun on this and just be like, oh, my God, Daniel Jones is absolute garbage off just one game. You know, I don't think that's fair to him as a quarterback. I don't think that's fair to any quarterback to look at one game. It'd be like, although Jones has a very, very large sample size of what we've seen, what he can do on the football field, you know, but I would compare it to looking at Sam Howell and being like, oh, God, he's not the guy because he turned the ball over in both of his starts. He's only had 2 starts, and we got to pump the brakes on that just a little bit. Nick DeWick says Mark Lewinsky needs to go. I don't know, man. I really don't know. I really don't know. You know, it's they put together a decent unit up front. They looked really bad. And I think one thing you can point to is the coaching with the New York Giants, because when you looked at the Dallas Cowboys, right? The Dallas Cowboys, they just look like, especially defensively, and they were dealing with some injuries up front on their offensive line, but defensively, they look like they're coached differently than we are. Every time they went to make a tackle, these guys are ferociously punching the ball out. The Giants are making tackles. They're just trying to wrap up, right? That's all they're trying to do. And it doesn't look like the aggression is there with the New York Giants. And I think that's a coaching thing. So you could look at Bobby Johnson as a big reason of why this offensive line is just not clicking the way it should be. You could look at him. Does he deserve to be fired today? I can't agree with that. I've heard a lot of my homies saying he deserves to be fired, that he deserves to be fired, along with the special teams coach. And I just don't think that. I think you got to give him a couple of more games, and I know this is the Giant overreaction. We can't overreact in that kind of fashion where people need to be losing their job off just one game. Yeah. And I see my man Brent says the dead cap is huge. Yeah, that's a problem. They're banking on Daniel Jones being good in the first 2 years. They're banking on that. At least as good as he was last year. And I try to tell people, man, when your quarterback has an issue with passing touchdowns, which Daniel Jones has now had for 3 seasons, it's alarming. That is alarming. I've been a New York Giants fan for 30 years, man. I've never seen something like this where a quarterback goes 3 seasons like this under 15 passing touchdowns. I don't care what's going on around him and who the players are, and the Giants fans going to make up excuses all damn day. I seen him on Twitter, like, you know, people saying, like, are we watching the same game? You guys are blaming Daniel Jones? Yes, we're blaming Daniel Jones. He played like shit, man. The offensive line, yes, we're blaming them. They played like shit. The only person that I excuse in this whole entire game, man, the only person that I excuse is Saquon Barkley, because he did what he does. This is what Saquon does. You give him 12 carries, expect around 50 or 60 yards if he doesn't break the big run, right? That's what Saquon does. You give Saquon like 17, 18 carries, find me those games. They're going to be few and far between where Saquon's getting 18, 20 carries and you seeing him around 50 yards. It's few and far between. That's not the player that he is. We know exactly who Saquon Barkley is. Somebody was arguing with me on one of my homie Mace's posts on Twitter, Real Mace Black. And they were saying if Daniel Jones was half the quarterback that y'all think he was, and if Saquon Barkley was the generational talent that y'all thought he was, then the Giants would be winning a ton more games. And I agree with that. We argued for like 6 tweets back and forth, and that was the one thing that he said to close it out. I completely agreed with it because it's 100% spot on. But for Saquon Barkley to do what he needs to do, he needs opportunity. This is now 3 straight games that Saquon Barkley has been under 12 or less carries. 9 against the Philadelphia Eagles in the playoffs in the divisional round. 9 against the Minnesota Vikings in a game where he was averaging 5.9 yards per carry. You're giving the guy the ball 9 times. I think if you give the ball to Saquon Barkley, Kirk Cousins doesn't have such a good game that day. And if you go back and look at the box score from Kirk Cousins against the Giants in the wild card round, that man had a day. He didn't turn the ball over. They just seemed to stop going to Justin Jefferson in the second half. And I would have found a way to just force the ball to him, and maybe their outcome is a little bit different, and the Giants would be kind of more put in their place because everybody want to hang their hat on that playoff win against the Minnesota Vikings, who were frauds, man. They were frauds. They were in the bottom of the whole league when it comes to every passing metric you could possibly think of from a defensive standpoint. They were frauds. They won 11 games by 1 score or less. They were frauds, man. They were straight frauds, and you saw them go up against the Bucs, and they struggled like we struggled. They went up against the Bucs, who are a team that no one thinks is going to win games this year. So we got to fix it, man. We got to fix it. They got to go back to the drawing board. When you look at Daniel Jones in this game, and let me bring up his statistics here while we talk about this. 15 of 28 for 105 yards, and 60 of these yards was in garbage time. 3.7 yards per attempt is absolutely ridiculous, man. Shout out to my homie Doug Analytics, man. He puts together some of the best numbers on Twitter. I suggest you follow him if you are on Twitter. Doug_Analytics. Put up the pass chart from Next Gen Stats, and he also added a couple of things here, to some asterisks on Daniel Jones. 1 completion of over 10 yards. 13 of the 15 completions were 6 air yards or less. What are we doing? What are we doing? There were some one-on-one matchups. My homie Steve Delhomme brought one up to me. There was a hole shot on the left side. Cover 2. Safety doesn't get over the top quick. Nope. Daniel Jones ain't letting that go. Not pulling the trigger. Safe quarterback. Safe quarterbacking from Daniel Jones, right? He had an average depth of target, which means how far he's throwing the ball, of 5.8 yards. The average completed depth of target was 2.2 yards. Could you imagine the average completion depth of target being 2.2 yards in tight window throws? Daniel Jones was 2 of 15. And when we talk about time to throw, I saw a lot of people saying, 1 second, he's got to get rid of the ball. Well, you need to pull out your stopwatch because Daniel Jones, I guarantee you, is going to be at the top of the list of quarterbacks who had the time to throw. And that's not an indictment necessarily on just Daniel Jones, and that's not a statement on the offensive line. 3.04 seconds was the time to throw for Daniel Jones. Like, I put a lot of this on the coaching staff, y'all. You know, when another channel that I recommend that all of you follow is the Quarterback School. Former San Francisco 49ers and Green Bay quarterback J.T. O'Sullivan runs a channel, and I always talk about it on here, where he breaks down quarterback play all the way from the mechanics, footwork, arm talent, power, accuracy, mind. I mean, it's the greatest kind of content you can possibly find. The QB School by my man J.T. O'Sullivan. And he's always talking about this with Daniel Jones and with other quarterbacks. Hot reads. Hot reads. When you get up to the line and you know that there's going to be pressure coming from a certain side, which usually hot reads are when defenses are blitzing. And I was asking around to people, like, do they set up hot reads when it's just 4 down linemen, you know, just getting pressure after the quarterback? And people were telling me, yes, they do. You know, I'm here to learn the game just as much as anybody else. I know a good chunk about football, but I'm always learning. You know, the terminology from when I played quarterback back in 1997, 1998 is so different. I watched Unnecessary Roughness or Necessary Roughness the other night, and that's the terminology I was going on, right? It'd be like Blue 42, quarterback this, let's go. That's it. There wasn't all these elaborate play calls, right? It was like one or two routes we had plays, and that was it. There was no crazy audibles. There were no hot reads, none of that. So at the line, when you sense pressure and it's going to come from a certain spot, normally you'll have a hot read designed in the offense where as soon as you sense that pressure, you have a quick route you can get the ball out to. And I think that Brian Dable and Mike Kafka are doing Daniel Jones a disservice by not setting up enough of those. And if it's not Brian Dable and Mike Kafka, it's Daniel Jones not abiding by what the system is presenting for him to try to do with it. The quarterback school talked about it with Jalen Hurts in his first year as a starter. And he was like, listen, I've looked at all the tape from Jalen Hurts. They have not instilled a hot route concept for Jalen Hurts at all. And every time Jalen Hurts gets hot pressure, he has to rely on his legs to peel out of the pocket. I'm starting to kind of notice a bit of it with the Chicago Bears as well, especially last year. You saw some of it yesterday against the matchup against the Packers where Justin Fields does have some quick reads, and I think that's where he was getting a lot of his completions. I don't got Justin Fields' numbers on the day, but they were a lot better than Daniel Jones. And I always talk about these kind of quarterbacks. Jameis Winston's, Justin Fields, Daniel Jones, they're the kind of quarterbacks you do not want them to get down by 2 scores in a game and force them to throw the ball a ton because they're going to make mistakes. All of them. Jameis Winston's a great quarterback when his team has the lead. He's a bad quarterback when his team is playing from behind, and those are the games where you see him where he starts to pile up interceptions. And I think Daniel Jones is kind of the same way. Outside of last year, and I told you I like to remove the best year, outside of last year, Daniel Jones is not the guy you want the ball in his hands with 2 minutes left in the game. He's just not that guy. It's just what it is. You know, and I think these numbers look a lot better than what the game looked like. That's the scary part about it. You know, that is the scary part about it to me. Now, I'm going to go to the next overreaction right away. Y'all tell me how y'all feel about this one because I'm not going to sit here and just completely just rag on Daniel Jones this whole episode. He played a bad game, but so did everybody else. And like I said, the only person I think I can exclude today is Saquon Barkley. And some people might disagree with that. And if you want to put Saquon Barkley on that list, then so be it. Go ahead and do that. I wouldn't even argue it. If you think Saquon had a bad game, because the interception from Saquon was not great either. You know, I know it was a bang-bang type of play. Trayvon Diggs did get there and make a fantastic play. I don't really put that interception on Daniel Jones or Saquon Barkley, to be honest. But let's talk about this offensive line a little bit one time. I think it's very important. All right, so this one comes from the, let me see who this one was from. Ojoku on Twitter. And he says, Daniel Jones was trash tonight, a word I really don't like to use, but the blame really has to go on the offensive line. Tell me what y'all thinking about this one. For me, I gotta take the push on this one. You hope that there are just some week one jitters here. There are a couple of teams that showed up in week one, and they didn't look that great. The Kansas City Chiefs being one of them, and I know they were dealing with an injury to their best player, but the Kansas City Chiefs didn't look all that great to me. They looked okay, right? But their offensive line was struggling. We didn't see them at their best. And a lot of people were looking at that game going, hey, look, he's playing with 2 wide receivers that are former New York Giants, and he can't get it done either. Now, I look at the Kadarius Toney type of thing. Kadarius Toney really didn't have many snaps with Daniel Jones on the field at all last season. Richie James did. Richie James had 2 targets in that game, and he only had 1 reception. So you can't look at Richie James and go, he was out there, you know, messing up the bag. But Kadarius Toney had an awful game. But I don't look at Kadarius Toney as a guy who was a part of the Daniel Jones success here. Kadarius Toney got drafted the year we brought in Kenny Galladay, and it did not work out. That's it. Kadarius Toney had 60 total targets as a New York Giant, and he had 3 drops. So I look at that as, you know, you're looking at 1 drop per 20 attempts, which is not that good. That is not that good. Let's get it, you know, call a spade here, right? But at the end of the day, I never looked at Kadarius Toney as a guy who had a drop problem when he was in New York. So when I saw Giants fans quick to go clown the Kansas City Chiefs and you know, bring up the Chris Collinsworth quote where he said Daniel Jones does a lot of things like Patrick Mahomes, I'm like, y'all are smoking some serious pack right now. Because I cannot agree with that, right? Now, the reason why I'm going to take the push on this one is because the offensive line was awful yesterday. They looked terrible. And I don't know if that says more about the Dallas Cowboys defensive front or if that says more about our offensive line. I think it's a little bit of both. What do y'all think? Y'all think this is an overreaction? Y'all want to take the push, or y'all going to take the under on this one and agree with the statement on the screen? Let me see what everybody's talking about. I'm going to go over some super chats as well while we at it. Man, shout out to y'all for being here. We've had over 200 in the building all damn day. All right, let me see where we at with it. My man Keith Wilson Jr., shout out to him for the $4.99 super chat. He says, what's the leash on the special teams? McGaughey has been here since 2018. I'm not even familiar with the special teams coach, and it still stinks. I get nervous every time we are back to catch a punt. I talked about this. I'm like, who's going to return punts for the New York Giants this year? I saw Sterling Shepard got a couple of them in the preseason. Why aren't we going out here and finding our Awthentik Turpin, who is dynamic every time he gets the ball in his hands? Even my girl was like, that guy's fast. She don't know who he is. Sometimes, when it comes to like judging a good movie, you could bring a kid to a good movie, and if that movie fire and it's action-packed, the kid don't got to have too much experience watching movie to be like, that's a great movie. You don't have to have a lot of football experience to look at a guy like Awthentik Turpin and go, man, that kid is dynamic. We have not had a dynamic punt returner since Dave Meggett. It's been years. It's been years for the New York Giants. So the leash, I think they all get about a good 7-game, 8-game leash. Straight up. You get to the middle half of this season and things is still looking like this, something got to be fixed. Something got to be fixed, man. Shout out to Keith Wilson one time. And shout out to the homie Preston Avery Blake in the building. That's a new name. Welcome to the fan, my G. He says, I'm so sick of being a Giants fan. I feel you, man, and y'all know me, man. Till that casket dips, I'm going to be a Giants fan forever. That is what it is. It ain't what it once was. I've been here for 30 years rooting for this team, man. In the 90s, we had some great teams. In the 2000s, we had some great teams. But for this last decade or so, bro, it's been extremely awful. I feel for you, man. Hang with us, man. At least you got us to lean on here. And we'll be able to chop it up and talk about this and see where the Giants can go moving forward, man. I know it's a tough day, but the better days are ahead of us. I promise that. Better days are definitely ahead of us, man. But shout out to Preston one time. Shout out to the homie one time talking Eco in the building. For the $4.99 super chat, he says, appreciate your content. The Giants just seem to play scared against the Eagles and Cowboys. That is so true. And you know what? I feel like you are a reflection of the leadership that you follow. We ain't got no leaders, man. When your quarterback walking out there and he ain't even confident, look at the way Daniel Jones walked out last year, week 1, against the Tennessee Titans. I remember they had that huddle camera like circling them, and Daniel Jones got in the huddle, and he was giving them the Joe Kane speech. Let's put the women and children to bed and go hunting for dinner. You could tell he was giving them the speech. And this one against the Cowboys is just like, all right, guys, blue 42, shallow cross, blue. It's nothing. Nothing. You didn't see no emotion from him. Nothing. I didn't even see him getting angry. That's why I always got respect for Odell Beckham. I know a lot of people might disagree with this one, right? Watch the numbers in the chat start to diminish. I will always have respect for Odell Beckham because when we were getting our asses kicked back when he was a New York Giant, he'd be the only one on the sideline screaming, throwing his helmet, getting hit by the kicking net, looking at his teammates like, y'all don't want to win? What the hell is going on over here? And people looked at that like tantrums. I understand that frustration. When I played ball, that was me on the field all the time. Like, even when I play ball in meaningless football in my recent history, in a two-hand touch co-ed league, right? When we be getting killed in these games, I'm the one on the sideline. I'm the one where everybody done clocked out, right? Halfway through the game, we getting beat 24-0. Everybody done clocked out, and they not even giving maximum effort because they looking at it like, bro, this is a flag football game. One, I'm out there to get a little workout, get a burn in because I'm always in the computer chair all damn day long. I'm in this studio all damn day, right? So I'll be out there. Monique can attest to this. I'll be drenched in sweat out that joint. My whole jersey dripping because I'm giving maximum effort. And I'm the one that's complaining on the sidelines. I'm the Odell Beckham on the sidelines screaming at people like, what's going on with y'all? Why aren't we making plays? I don't care how much we getting beat by. So I promise y'all, I always have respect for OBJ because he is a competitor. Football, especially, is a game of will, a game of heart. You got to give it your all when you're out there. And I can't question NFL players' effort. But I will say this, they weren't out there giving maximum effort. They was not out there dying on their shields on that field. They were not doing that. And that goes for every player, including Saquon Barkley. But I appreciate Talking Eco pulling up, man, and bringing up this point. You're right. We scared. We playing scared against the Eagles and the Cowboys, man. You remember when we lined up against the Eagles in the playoffs in the divisional round? They was out there talking smack, and you see Dexter Lawrence, the only one kind of like jawing a little bit. Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones, they out there. They got their hands behind their back. They all quiet. They not ready for the fight. You better go out there and punch somebody in the mouth on the field if that's the case. If you're not going to be doing the yapping before the game, if you're not barking, then go out there and bite as a dog when you out there. We cannot keep playing scared like that against these two teams that reside within our division. We can't do that, y'all. We definitely cannot do that. Shout out to homie Zeke Anderson one time for the $5 super chat. He said, giving the ball to Saquon is admitting the mistake. Forcing the offense through DJ is a continuing mistake and a waste of time and money. You saw it in the back half of the season, Zeke. They went away from it. Saquon Barkley started to get the are you hurt, are you injured type of treatment. He told him he was hurt, shoulder kind of hurting. They're like, all right, we're going to lower all the carries for you. We're going to rely on this short passing attack. It hasn't worked. They won 3 out of 10 on the back half of the season. Now add these 2 games to it, the Philadelphia Eagles game and this Cowboys game. You're looking at 3-12 since the New York Giants started putting the ball in Daniel Jones' hand to pass the ball more. We got to get back to our identity. It's super important, yo. I'm with you on this, Zeke. Shout out to homie Dominic one time in the building. He says, is Waller the best wide receiver we have on the squad, though? I think we played a big factor. I'm not sure what you mean on the second half of this, but as far as Waller being the best wide receiver we have on the squad, yeah. I think he's the most complete. He's the one that can go out here and make the most plays, for sure. You got guys that can stretch the field, and I think that Jalen Hyatt is an extremely great young talent that should show up soon and could possibly be our wide receiver 1. I've spoke on that for a while. I like Darius Slayton. I think he can stretch the field fairly well. Sterling Shepard was getting clamped up yesterday. Paris Campbell looked all right, but Paris Campbell looking like he's getting clamped up a little bit too. So, yeah, I definitely think that Darren Waller's he's the best weapon we have out there, and they're lining up out on the outside as a wide receiver, so got to use him. Got to use him that way, that's for sure. Let me see this other one here. This one is from a independent outsider. Can we keep it real? Would signing Justin Pugh or Dalton Risner help win more games, or would those moves be overreacting and overspending? I think Justin Pugh's best days are behind him. You could bring in some help on this offensive line, man, but, I was one of our homegirls, Fitty Smalls, on Twitter was talking about this. Shout out to her. She's always talking about the Giants, and I know she was extremely frustrated, and she wanted to bring in, can we bring in a right tackle to replace Evan Neal? And I said, bringing in a right tackle is not going to fix this. One player can't fix this. This is bigger than one player. This is the coaching staff. This is the coaches that are underneath Brian Daboll as well, right? And getting these guys right. Our offensive line looks terribly ill-prepared. They just don't look prepared. How are we still getting beat on basic stunts on a regular basis? That's just not it. That's just not it, yo. That's just not it. But shout out to Independent Outsider, man, for supporting the channel. That's major right there. As far as this one right here, man, yeah, I agree with the statement on the screen. Both. Daniel Jones was absolutely terrible last night in that game. And you really do got to blame the offensive line. I'm blaming Daniel Jones as well, though. I'll put a little asterisk there, too. I'm blaming Daniel Jones as well. And Adam Costas, he doubled down on it as well. He said the team looks underprepared. Yeah, I'm with you on that. And Big Data says, we've been getting beat in basic stunts for 10 years now. Well, what is that? Why is that? Through 3 different coaching staffs, why is that? I do not understand that, and it makes absolutely no sense. And I want to get to another one of my overreactions here, and I want to see how y'all feel about this one. And StreamYard definitely StreamYard's been a little clunky as of late. I will say that. It's been a little clunky. We got to get on that StreamYard. We definitely got, or we're going to be pivoting to a new platform. But let me, tell me what y'all think about this overreaction right here. All right, y'all. I saw this one on Twitter from the Real Rod LB. He said Ben McAdoo, Pat Shurmur, Joe Judge, and now Brian Daboll. Season 2 collapse. I'm going to give y'all a little bit of time to think about this one. And let me know how y'all feel, man. Let me see them O's if you think it's an overreaction. Let me see them U's if you agree with this statement on the screen. And we'll see how y'all feeling about this one. I think I know where this one's going to be going, but I want to get all the votes on this one. Let me see how y'all feel. Shout out to homie Nick the Wick one time, man, with that $5 super chat, man. I appreciate that, brother. He said, I'm going to be honest. Today I'm just taking everything in and being as unbiased as I can. This whole time I'm just sitting back realizing stuff. Yeah, man, you know, this is why like I'm a bit of a, especially on Twitter, right? Like I'm a bit of a like, I don't want to say like a outcast. That's not the right word, but like, because a lot of people show me love on there, right? But a good majority of the fan base that is only looking for positive reactions, they be having beef with me a little bit on Twitter, right? Because I'm blunt, I'm very honest, I'm going to keep it funky, I'm going to call it like I see it, right? And when I give pushback on certain things like Isaiah Simmons matching up in coverage or Bobby O being able to be the one piece that'll come in here and fix the rushing defense for the New York Giants, and I don't think that that's going to be the case right off the bat, or Evan Neal having a year 2 leap and hitting the ground running, or JMS coming in here and being a day 1 starter who's not going to have any woes and is just going to be able to be a beast as soon as he touches the field, people give me pushback. You know, or not being so high on the wide receiver core, or talking about Richie James being a player that I think the New York Giants should have retained, and losing him is going to be tough to fill his shoes with guys like Paris Campbell and Wan'Dale Robinson, right? I get a lot of pushback, right? And I think today, if the shoe was on the opposite foot, right? If Daniel Jones went out there and went crazy, and Isaiah Simmons had an interception, and Bobby O held Tony Pollard, and we won this game, they would all be in my mentions, right? And they'll be like, see, I told you, authentic, da-da-da-da-da. But I'm not going to do that today. You know, I am one who likes to keep receipts, right? And I kept a bunch of receipts before the season. From content creators, from people that be in my mentions, from people that are like outrageous homers, and anytime you say something negative, they're telling you that Daniel Jones is an elite quarterback. I had a dude tell me that Daniel Jones, there's no difference between him and Patrick Mahomes except the roster and the coaching around Patrick Mahomes. I bookmarked that. But I'm not going to go to Twitter and pull up these receipts. I'm not going to do it because I know the fan base today is in shambles, and I'm not here to pile on and pour on to the pain that people are going through today with their football team, especially when they had to get up and go to work and do things today. They had tasks they had to handle and whatnot. I'm fortunate enough to be able to come up here and rap with y'all for a couple hours, and I think y'all are fortunate enough to be able to come up here and just chill and be able to listen and talk Giants football the Monday after, right? But that's not my thing. I'm not going to pile on the fan base. That I'm a respectful dude. I don't disrespect nobody when it comes to Twitter unless they come at me first, right? Then I'm going to bring the smoke 100%. I'm from D.C. We know how to joan. We know how to snap. We know how to roast, right? So I think today is not that day. But it's just interesting, and I think Nick the Wick, his super chat there kind of brought it to fruition for me and brought it full circle for me, because I see a lot of the conversations that me and him are in with other people and how just arrogant some of the shit people say is. And when they say it, right, they know that on Twitter you're going to get a bunch of likes when you say Daniel Jones is elite, or when you say we're going to kick the Cowboys' ass, or when you say Jalen Hyatt's going to have 2 touchdowns on the day, he's going to take the top off this Cowboys defense. People eat that shit up on Twitter because people like positivity when it comes to their football team. And I get that, right? Like when you see somebody say something negative, it's like, damn. It's a lot of the reason why I get labeled as a hater, but anybody who knows, and if you just like, a lot of times when people have a bad stance on a person, and I notice this in music a lot, like people will say something like, let me think of something like, Nicki Minaj is a garbage rapper. That's because you just uninformed. You don't listen to her, right? And you don't know. And I don't listen to Nicki Minaj like that, but I've listened to her enough to know that she's not a garbage rapper. She got on the Monster record with a bunch of, at least 4 heavyweights, and had the best verse on there, right? But when you are uninformed, people form uninformed opinions. And I think a lot of that runs around on social media, and people piggyback off it, right? They just want to like see the positive stuff and go, yeah, and agree with it, right? But for me, I got to look at it with an objective eye. That's just how I do. And people going to label me a certain way, right? But I'm going to always keep it real. And I think this one right here, right? Ben McAdoo, Pat Shurmur, Joe Judge, and Brian Dable season 2 collapse. I'm not ruling it out. I do think that Brian Dable could have a season 2 collapse. Anything 6 wins or under this year is going to be a collapse. 7 wins, I can give you the benefit of the doubt because the schedule is much more difficult than it was last year. But you start pushing 5 wins, 4 wins, it's definitely Ben McAdoo territory. And Ben McAdoo got fired prematurely. I think granted, he did not have a good grip on the locker room. I think he got fired prematurely because he gave us our last winning season before Brian Daboll got here, got us to the playoffs. Odell and them, didn't show up. That ain't Ben McAdoo's fault. They didn't show up. Comes back the next year. They bring in Brandon Marshall. I was extremely excited about Brandon Marshall. I was like, damn, like Brandon Marshall never been to the playoffs. We're just coming off the playoffs. This should be one of the best wide receiver rooms in the league with Sterling Shepard, Odell Beckham Jr., and Brandon Marshall. And then everybody got hurt. Week 5, everybody got hurt. Brandon Marshall, season-ending ankle injury. Odell Beckham out for the year. Sterling Shepard banged up for like 7 games. Dwayne Harris even got hurt in that game. If you were labeled as a wide receiver on the roster that day, you got hurt. And that season just went completely to shit. And then we ended up benching Eli Manning and ruining the streak and bringing in Geno Smith, who ultimately went on to be a decent quarterback, at least last year. Didn't have a great day yesterday. And Ben McAdoo just got fired a little bit early. I don't think the same thing happens here with Brian Daboll. You cannot keep firing coaches after 2 years. The collapse is definitely possible. It's definitely possible. I'm going to wait a couple more weeks. The stretch for me is that long stretch with Seattle, the Jets, the Buffalo Bills, and the Miami Dolphins. When we're done that stretch and we get ready to go up against Washington in week 7, I'll know what's up. So on this one, I'm going to take the push. A lot of people took the push on this one. I see Dice took the push. Kevin took the push. Big Dash says it's an overreaction, which I know Big Dash is in go mode as a fan right now. He's told me. He switched it. He's in go mode. He's all about just supporting the team. And I'm going to support my team to the death, right? But I can't just be blind. I picked 8 and 9, and I 2 ways I went about this. On the schedule prediction, I said that we were going to get swept by Dallas. I'm not going to come up here on week 1 and try to dishearten Giants fans or myself. So I'm going to pick us week 1. And hopefully it could increase our 8-win total that I think we're going to be at to 9 or 10. And I said that a bunch on that stream. I said, look, if the Giants come out here and they shock Dallas, then you could bank we're going to get to about 9 wins. It didn't happen. A lot of others are saying overreaction. Lenny says it's an overreaction. John says it's an overreaction. Mike says it's an overreaction. SOS says it's an overreaction. Sank's taking the push on this one time. Kareem Yee, overreaction. Robert Gregory says it's an overreaction. Motivated T says history does seem to repeat itself. I don't know, man. I've been a Giants fan for a really long time. I don't know. I really don't know, man. I don't know if history, it sounds good, but as of late, it has not been repeating itself, man. If we go this decade without a Super Bowl, that's going to be pretty bad for us, man. That's going to be pretty bad for us. And coming up through the 90s, you had Phil Simms who struggled a little bit, and then you had Hostetler come in and win a Super Bowl in a year where Simms got hurt. Had bad quarterbacks for a long time after that. And maybe this is history repeating itself, Motivated T. Maybe it is. Maybe this is the going through the bad quarterback play until we find a way to climb up out of this and start to really be a contender in this division. I think a lot of people overlooked that one win within the division last year and thought that the New York Giants were closing the gap with the Dallas Cowboys when in reality we really weren't. And a lot of people think that there was some gap between the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles when there really wasn't one. Dak Prescott never faced Jalen Hurts last year. And in a game where the Dallas Cowboys went up against Gardner Minshew, it was a one-score game. Yeah, it was a tough-fought game. But I still think that there wasn't a large gap between the Dallas Cowboys last year and the Philadelphia Eagles. I was hoping that they could have found a way to face off in the playoffs, and it just didn't happen. This year, when the Dallas Cowboys go up against the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm going to pick the Dallas Cowboys. I'm letting you know that right now. That Dallas Cowboys front is ferocious. I think they're going to be able to find a way to get after Jalen Hurts. And Dak Prescott should just get better from here on out. He just had a very just okay game, and he was chilling. He was never pressed. And we've seen that a lot from Jalen Hurts where he doesn't have to, press the issue and try to put up big numbers because his defense is holding him down, and they're killing teams with chunk runs, and that's exactly what the Dallas Cowboys did. Hyphen Wade said he's going to take the push. I like the explanation here too, bro. I appreciate that. He says, once again, it's literally one game, a very frustrating one, but one game nevertheless. We just have to be better prepared for the top dogs. That's facts. Because we seem to play well against teams that aren't that great. It's the top dogs where we really, really, really have some trouble. Mike says it's an overreaction as well. Twin is in the building. Shout out Twin in the building. Twin says it's an overreaction. Daboll might actually need to take over as play caller. That's a good point. I think Mike Kafka does a pretty good job. To me, it'd be the game plan. So I think Daboll has a lot to do with the game plan as well. They're not committing to the run. Sank said he taking the push. 40-0 is a disaster, but it's too early. I'm with you on that. And I don't look at, like, 8 wins won't be a major setback. It won't be a major setback. If you can get to 8 wins, you're going to be all right. Shout out my guy Sal one time in the building, man. I appreciate you supporting the channel, my dude. Can't wait to jump into spaces and talk ball with y'all later, man. I know y'all had one going on earlier. I was just a little busy prepping for the show and whatnot and couldn't pop in. I'm super grateful for these dudes, man, because I haven't got to meet Sal and them. And a lot of these people that are in my group thread, we haven't got to meet in person. Shout out Rob Zero, Base. Who else is in these joints, man? Momo's in them joints. It's a bunch of us in there, man. And we always talk ball every day. We talk ball every day. Cross be in there. Shout out Cross one time, too. And I'm grateful for these dudes, man, because, like, I've learned so much from them, for one. And just getting to talk ball with people that really know ball, and it's not from a biased perspective, man, that'd be the problem when I'm, like, collaborating with a lot of people on the internet and stuff like that. I just feel like people are so biased for the Giants. It's like they can't see any good in the other teams in the division because they're so biased. And that's not fun ball talk. That's not fun ball talk. Professor O is also in these group chats with us as well. He's a Cowboys fan. He had me on his channel the other day, and it was a great conversation with me, him, his co-host Nix, a few others that they have on their panel that are super chill people. And they're rational fans, you know. They were surprised to see my takes be more level-headed and not so just, like, over the top about my team, man. So I'm super grateful for all these dudes, man. I've learned a lot. And they made the offseason go by fast. I told them this before the game yesterday. You know, like, the season offseason flew by for me because we talk ball every day. We get into Twitter spaces every day and talk ball every day, whether it's 4 of us or 400 of us. We're in there talking ball every day. And these are the topics we've been talking about all summer. We saw this coming. We saw this coming. We knew this was going to happen. We knew we weren't ready for Dallas. Most of us knew this. You know, so shout out to Sal, man. I appreciate you supporting the channel, man. That's just one of my dudes. I can't wait to meet y'all up at the FedEx Field game here when we get to play Washington, because that's going to be a good one. We're going to have a blast, y'all. Let me see who else came in here. Just catching up. Man, and all the donations, y'all, thank you, man. I appreciate y'all. Y'all know this ain't easy putting together a show like this, man. I definitely appreciate that. Shout out to homie one time, Mike Glenn, not to be confused with Mike Glennon, says, I 100% agree. McAdoo was fired too early. He saw something in Smith that made him want him as his quarterback. Coaches should be able to play their QB. Right, and you know the rumor was, and the rumor has been confirmed, that Ben McAdoo was trying to bring in Patrick Mahomes during that draft. That would have been amazing. Giants fans would have been, ecstatic to have a guy like Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball. So, I mean, I've always thought that about Ben McAdoo. A lot of people just used Ben McAdoo as a scapegoat, man. He's not the first coach. He's not the first coach that'll be used as a scapegoat, and definitely not the last, man. Definitely not the last. But shout out to Mike Glenn one time for pulling up with that $4.99 super chat. Shout out to the homie Danny Thomas one time in the building, too, with the $10 super chat. He says, I blame this on the coaching staff and the right side of the offensive line. They looked ill-prepared for this game. Also, the game calling on the offensive was horrid. I felt we needed to play 12-man personnel. Yeah, we thought it was going to be a ton of 12-man this year. You know, like bringing in Darren Waller, who was not like the greatest inline tight end. You know, he's not necessarily known for his blocking capabilities in the running game and whatnot. But when you bring in Daniel Bellinger and you could have 2 tight ends, and for those of y'all that don't know 12 personnel, I seen somebody talking about this on Twitter saying, like, if you don't know personnel, you don't know ball. Let me tell y'all something so hilarious. Like, I know my personnels, right, because it's such an easy theory. But back in my day, we didn't call personnels by the number. You just said what was out on the field, literally, right? However many players were out at whatever position. An easy way to understand personnel, the first number is the amount of running backs. The second number is the amount of tight ends. You do the math to figure out how many other wide receivers will be on the field. So 12 personnel means that you have 1 running back on the field, 2 tight ends. And we just didn't run a lot of that. We didn't run a lot of that, you know, in this game. And I hope that they revisit and go back to the drawing board, get back to our identity, power football. They went to some 12 in the second half, trying to keep the tight end in line to help Evan Neal out on the right side, and it still didn't work. So I'm with you on this. I want to see a ton more 12 personnel. Before we can get all fancy, we got to get basic. We got to be able to handle the fundamentals before we start to get all fancy. So I'm 100% with you on this, Danny Thomas. Thank you for that $10 super chat and rocking with us today, man. That means a lot. Let me see what else we got here. Okay. I just wanted to catch up to those super chats for y'all real quick. I definitely appreciate that, man. I don't want those topics to get too far down the line. Let me see. Did I get to that one? Oh, I didn't get to this one, too, from the homie Brent. Brent said, someone said it looked like year 1 to 3 for DJ, not year 4, which is really year 5 now, right? I agree, you can't put too much value on a guy trying to get paid. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm definitely with you on that, bro. That's facts right there. I definitely appreciate that $5 super chat too, brother. And most importantly, I appreciate you rocking with us today, man. I appreciate y'all vibing out with me today, man. It's going to be a good one. Sometimes I go back and I rewatch the streams, man. And this one I'm looking forward to going back and just kind of just seeing all the chat because I couldn't keep my eyes on it completely today. You know, it's like that chat is just moving so fast today. And if I missed any of the super chats, man, I apologize. I definitely apologize. We definitely appreciate all of y'all showing y'all support for the channel. Let me see. I don't think we got this one either. SOS Archive says, we need a franchise-altering quarterback to be a perennial playoff team. Even with Eli, we would miss the playoffs, then sneak in as a wild card. I'm over it, man. I'm with you, man. I want elite at the quarterback position. I've been like that for a long time. And some people look at that and they be like, man, you want too much, man. Finding a good quarterback in the NFL is hard to find. That's what people will tell you, right? Well, you got to keep shooting until you find that elite guy. Well, when we entered the season, right, my plan, of course, would have been to bring in a bridge guy, and at the time I was looking at a guy like Marcus Mariota, who I thought had the running capability to run this offense, but doesn't have the arm talent, especially after seeing his performance in the preseason this year. I know it's preseason, but, he looks a little shell-shocked. And even seeing him on the quarterback, the special on Netflix, just didn't seem like he had his wits together. But even a guy like Jacoby Brissett, there are other, even like a guy like a bridge quarterback like an Andy Dalton, you got to think of the ratio of money that these guys make in comparison to a guy who you're paying as a franchise quarterback, which is Daniel Jones, $82 million guaranteed, $160 million contract, $40 million a year. You could go out here and get Andy Dalton for like $6 million, $7 million, and then draft a quarterback. And you take 2 shots at it, man. Like, you go out there this year, you trade up and you draft a guy like Anthony Richardson. You could possibly do what the Colts did and start him day one. You got to understand that you're going to have some woes and, some hurdles are going to be tough to get over with a young quarterback. But even if you miss that first year, right, that rookie contract's only going to cost you $20 million in a 4-year, possibly a 5-year run if you draft him in the first round. You could have drafted guys in the second or third or fourth or fifth round, late rounds, even guys like Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who in preseason looked great for the Browns. Looks like he's pushing Deshaun Watson for his job if there wasn't money on the line. But the quarterback market has been inflated so much the last decade that these guys are getting paid too much money. And I think that we got to reserve the big, big, big contracts for the quarterbacks who are big, big time on the field. Why are we paying a guy like Daniel Jones $160 million? To me, it just doesn't make any sense. Where a year before that, even the people who support him, the guys like Tiki Barber, were telling me, literally, I have the clip of him telling me that Daniel Jones is an $18 million a year quarterback. Like, I don't understand it. And I'm not going to sit up here and dismiss everything that Daniel Jones did last year that was good. The kid took care of the ball. He played good football. He played winning football. But when you looked at it, it wasn't like, I hated when people call last year great. It was not great. It was good. It was just a good year. That was it. And he had a couple of big games. But when you look throughout the whole tenure of Daniel Jones, the problem has been consistency. And last year, I've brought up this stat a billion times. He did not have one stretch during the regular season of back-to-back games with multiple passing touchdowns. You cannot be an NFL quarterback doing that. You can't. I don't care if you're playing on the worst team in the entire league. You cannot go a whole 17-game season and not have 2 games where you threw for at least 2 touchdowns. That cannot happen. So, SOS Archive, I'm with you on this, bro. I feel your frustrations. I definitely do. It's disheartening. And you know that we can't do shit about it. We cannot do shit about it. This is our quarterback for at least the next couple of years. That's the bottom line. This is our quarterback. We got to support him, and that's it. Can't do nothing about it. So for me, I'm not going to sit here and just blame Daniel Jones all day. I can't do that. But we know what we got now. We got to figure out how we're going to maneuver around this. Are we going to try to build a team around this? And a lot of people will point to the San Francisco 49ers model and say, hey, man, just build the team, man, and then you can just plug and play any quarterback. Build the team around him. Y'all better stop sleeping on Brock Purdy. Y'all better stop sleeping on Brock Purdy. You saw Trey Lance in that system. You saw Josh Johnson in that system. It don't look like it when Brock Purdy is in there at quarterback. So that's what it is. We got to go out here, obviously support our quarterback, right? We got to do that. I'm going to do that all day. I hate when people say when I'm being critical of Daniel Jones that you're not supportive of him. And bro, I want the Giants to win games. I'm hoping that Daniel Jones goes out there and puts up 4 touchdowns last night. Nope, that ain't happened. So it is what it is, and it ain't what it once was. Said it on a bar back in the day. It could not ring more true for the New York Giants. We're in struggle mode right now, and last year was an anomaly. Yes, we overperformed. Yes, I'm not going to call it a fluke, but it was an anomaly. That's what it was, right? And look, my man the Beard is here because he's one of the main people sleeping on Brock Purdy, and this is why the Beard is the best co-host in the country. Me and him got no problem saying when we wrong. The Beard had told me since Tua was drafted, the Beard told me Tua's a good quarterback. And I was like, man, I don't like him. I don't like him. I don't like him. You know why I didn't like him? Because I was uninformed. I went this offseason, I looked at every snap from Justin Fields. I looked at every snap from Jalen Hurts. I looked at every snap from Daniel Jones. I looked at every snap from Tua. And when I was done, I texted the Beard and I said, yo, Tua is the most decisive quarterback in the entire NFL. And if you don't believe me, go check out the breakdowns from Alex Rollins. Number one, look at Alex Rollins' breakdown on Tua. He'll show you the tape. He'll show you everything you need that'll have you leaving that video saying Tua is the most decisive quarterback. Dan Orlovsky was on ESPN this morning. He retweeted my tweet when I said this today, too. Shout out to Dan Orlovsky because that's major for me, bringing some eyes to what I'm doing here on YouTube and what I'm doing on Twitter. But he pretty much said nobody sees the field as good as Tua does. And I think a lot of that has to do with McDaniel over there as the head coach, too, dialing up quick passing schemes. And I retweeted it, or I quote tweeted it, and I said, yo, I've been saying this for the past year now. Tua is the most decisive quarterback in the NFL. And he retweeted it. A lot of people were laughing at it. They're like, whatever, yeah, Tua. They're not looking at the tape. They're uninformed. Look at some of the anticipation throws. He was top 3 in the league as far as his average depth of target last year. So that means he's throwing the ball farther down the field than most quarterbacks. And people always say, he's got a noodle arm and blah, 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 blah. Tua is one of the most decisive quarterbacks in the NFL. The tape is there. Go look at the tape. And I used to be a guy that'd be like, I'm kind of a casual fan. I don't look at tape. I remember when I first got into YouTube, people were like, yo, man, I'm turning on all 22. And I was like, man, y'all goofy as hell, man. I'm a fan. If you want to be an informed fan, you should start looking at the tape and look at some of the professionals who break it down. Start off with JT O'Sullivan, who's broken down every quarterback coming out of college, every quarterback in the NFL multiple times. You can see all 4 breakdowns on Daniel Jones from his rookie year all the way up to now. There's been a progression for sure. And you'll see it from a guy who knows the game and knows the X's and O's and can speak it and break down terminology that us as regular fans have no idea. So the Beard, like I told you, I was wrong on Tua. The Beard will tell me right back he's looking like he's wrong on Brock Purdy. It is what it is, man. It is what it is. And it's been a lot here. I appreciate y'all rocking with us. We at the 222 mark, man. 2 hours and 22 minutes we've been rocking over here at the Giant Overreaction. We've had high numbers in here the whole time we've been here, man. So big salute to y'all. This is our most, the highest amount of people we've had in the stream all year long, So shout out to y'all. Make sure y'all check us out. Show some love on Tuesday when the Beard comes up here and starts to give his opinions on the New York Giants and the rest of the NFC East. Make sure y'all pull up for that because it's really going to be a good one. I think I had maybe one more overreaction I wanted to go over. Let me just check this real quick and see if I had another one. I think I had one more. Yes, I definitely had one more. And we got to talk about this. Ain't no way we not going to talk about this one. All right, let's get into this next Giant overreaction, yo. Everyone is on Evan Neal, rightfully so. But where was Kayvon? Dude didn't do a thing. This one comes from the homie Chris Taz19 on Twitter. Shout out to him for bringing this to my attention because y'all know me. Sometimes the defensive stuff, I can overlook it, man. I'm a very offensive-oriented, offensive-minded type of fan. I like seeing the game from the offensive perspective. Let me know what y'all thinking about this one. Is this like an overreaction on Evan Neal? I mean, on Kayvon Thibodeau? Is it an accurate assessment on Evan Neal that people should be on Evan Neal? Which I do think that is correct. For me, right? I got to take the under on this. It's very accurate because you drafted Kayvon Thibodeau with the 5th overall pick. He's now entering his 2nd season. Somebody, Nunu brought this up to me on Twitter. Shout out to Nunu. Nunu said, when you look at his 4 sacks from last season, 2 of them were just wide open moves to the quarterback, which is facts. I've had my beef with Kayvon Thibodeau, and it hasn't been a large beef because I think Kayvon Thibodeau is a really good player. I really do think he's a really good player. But when you look at some of the perennial edge rushers who came out of college, the Bosas, even like guys like Chase Young, these guys have better bull rushes than a guy like Kayvon Thibodeau does. I think the power might be missing with Kayvon Thibodeau. I see a guy who gets stood up a lot in games. Kayvon Thibodeau had 4 combined tackles in this game, 1 solo tackle, 0 sacks, 0 tackles for loss, 0 quarterback hits. We can credit Dak Prescott a lot for that, and Mike McCarthy for helping Dak Prescott get rid of the ball really quickly. But Kayvon, as a 5th pick, man, I think Giants fans have had a higher expectation for you. I think your play on the field has been spotty at best. You know, Nunu also talked about this, which I thought was a really good point as well last night. She said when the Giants had the joint practices with the Detroit Lions, all the beat writers from the Detroit Lions were saying, man, you can really see the speed and the power and the tenacity and the ferociousness from Aiden Hutchinson, but you just don't see that from Kayvon Thibodeau. And people were saying, oh, well, Kayvon Thibodeau is going up against one of the better tackles in the league. I believe that's Penny Sewell over there. And, you know, making up more excuses. Really making up more. We good at that. And I think all football fans are good at that. When your team start to lose and you're not too comfortable with losing, you need a certain amount of losing where the excuses completely go out the door. Like when you were a Cleveland Browns fan during that whole entire stretch where they were awful, or when you're a Washington Commanders/Redskins football team fan during the time where they just can't find a quarterback, which is still lingering today, you give up on it. But for us, it's like you get these spotty moments of success, and it almost skews your rationale in a way, right? Because you're like, nah, we're supposed to be heading in the up direction. We're not moving like lateral or moving in the negative direction here. We're supposed to be becoming a better team, and you want to believe it. I understand faith. I do understand faith. Like I'm a man of faith myself. You got to like speak things into existence, but those are the things that are in your control. The New York Giants are really not in our control. All we can do is root them on and hope they do well. And I think for this one here, it's a very accurate statement that leads to us to at least consider what's going on with Kayvon Thibodeau, right? And like I talked about with the leadership stuff, you know, last year, I can remember a clip from Kayvon Thibodeau where he was on the bench, and I want to say it was during the Indianapolis Colts game when we finally got that game like on ice. He was on the bench with Dexter Lawrence, and he looked over at Dexter Lawrence, and you almost saw like either an older brother to a younger brother relationship or a father to his son relationship, and the son saying like, Dad, you a beast. And Kayvon Thibodeau told Dexter Lawrence like, man, you the best player I've ever played with. And I agree with him. Dexter Lawrence a beast. Probably the best player he's ever played with for sure, right? You come into your second year, you got to start to be that beast now. You got to start to be that guy. These depth pieces that they brought in behind guys like Kayvon Thibodeau, they're not showing up quite yet. It's one game. I can't overreact, right? But you got to be out there. You got to get the dogs riled up and be barking ready to go off that leash. And as soon as they open up the kennel, you out there and you ready to go. And I got to agree with my man Adam Costas here. If you need your coach to get you motivated, that's never good. The coach should be the one where the player's getting him motivated, right? Because the coach can only do so much. He can put you in position to win. And that's something that Giants fans just overlook. Like, yeah, we had the coach of the year last year. Brian Dable's been doing a really good job. But we've been crowning these guys. Like, we've been crowning these coaches like, yo, every matchup we look at, I notice Giants fans say this. Well, like where we have deficiencies on the roster, we're going to make up for it in coaching because we have the better coaching. Tell me last night you thought we had the better coaching. Tell me last night you thought Brian Dable, Mike Kafka, and Wink Martindale were better than Mike McCarthy and Dan Quinn. Ain't no damn way. And yet, shout out to my homie Strider. This is my first time seeing Strider in the building one time this year, man. Big salute to Strider in the building. He said, Awthentik and the Beard, self-motivation comes from within. Hey, the Beard will tell you, I got chills, man, like goosebumps, right? Because I say a bar on my last album. I say motivation is for people already motivated. People that aren't motivated, when you try to motivate them, they look at you like you crazy, bro. It is what it is. That is what it is. Motivation is for people that are motivated. Some people still, they might have a little motivation in the tank, and you might be able to talk them up and try to get them right. But if you ain't got no motivation to get off your ass, there are no words that anybody's going to be able to do that's going to convince you otherwise. I notice with people that aren't motivated, right? They can see somebody do, like, yo, I'm an extremely motivated dude, man. I think about my life, my success, and what I want to do with my life every damn day. I'm not going through no routine where I'm not thinking about how can I get better and raise my bar, man. When you look at people who aren't motivated, though, they can see somebody do greatness. Like, it could be the most greatest shit ever. Like, yo, did you see this person did this, that, and the third? And they just be like, oh, word? Hey, that's dope. It's because they're not motivated. So that statement could not be more true, man. You got to have the motivation yourself, at least a little bit, and then you can go with your brothers out there. Maybe they could take you to the next level, right? It's like the thing that Thibodeau's telling Dexter Lawrence. When you see Dexter Lawrence out there just wreaking havoc, just throwing people to the side, that's gonna make you go, man, I gotta go harder. I gotta go even crazier out here on the field, right? When you see Saquon out here just going crazy, putting his all on the line, they giving Saquon 30-something plus carries when he's going up against the Texans, bust his shoulder. You think you're going to just sit there and just look at Saquon and be like, whatever? Which was my problem with the Giants during the Odell Beckham years, man. They was just looking at Odell like, and then when it all boiled down in 2016 in the playoffs, he dropped a couple passes, and they were like, oh, it's your fault. You being too hot. You're the one who was doing the dog peeing celebrations and all that stuff. Oh, it was cool when we was winning games, which wasn't a lot of the time. I think that 2018 team, man, I think they only won like 5 games with Saquon and Odell Beckham on the field. So for me, the motivation definitely got to come within. And I think anybody who disagrees with that, man, like, you might have to check yourself. You might have to look in the mirror and look deep within and see what's going on, because motivation is for people that are motivated. You got to go out there and go get it, man. And these dudes, if that ain't enough motivation, these dudes getting paid millions of dollars. Let that money motivate you if it's not going to be your peers. Definitely let that money motivate you. So those are all of my Giant overreactions today, man. We've been up here for 2.5 hours. I salute all of y'all, man. And the next time I get to bring up this graphic right here that shows the Giants taking on the Dallas Cowboys, man, hopefully the results are a little bit better. Because today, I know Giants fans across the world. I said across the country on the last stream or on the last tweet, and people are popping in like, bro, I'm over here in the UK, and it's just as bad. But hopefully when we play them again, we don't got to deal with the nonsense that we saw on Sunday Night Football with our New York Giants, because it was absolutely pathetic, man. And I appreciate all of y'all being here, rocking with me today on this first week edition, man, of the Giant Overreaction, especially those of y'all that stayed here for 2.5 hours, man, rocked out with me from start to finish. For those of y'all that go back and you rewatch this stream, put some biceps in the chat so I can know that you saw this moment right here. Big respect to all of y'all, man. Big respect to all of y'all, because it takes a certain kind of individual to get dog walk like that in a game and come here and chop it up and talk about it. You know, and that's why I say it's a therapy session. You know, it's definitely a therapy session. The last thing I'm going to leave y'all with before I get up out of here is, you know, Dave Gettleman, when he was here and when he left, he took a lot of rap of when it went down. And ultimately, I believe he should have took a lot of that rap along with the coaches. They all should have took the rap, and they did take the rap, right? When it all goes down, when we look at Joe Shane and the Brian Dable regime and what happened here, I think that there's a looming question here that needs to be brought up right now and needs to be revisited when we get a couple years down the line. This winning while rebuilding. When Dave Gettleman came here and he said we're going to try to win and rebuild at the same time, fans were ecstatic about that. Yeah, we don't want to be losers. No way. We don't want to be at the bottom of the division. We don't want to have to reset the rookie contract clock for a quarterback and have to deal with bad play for a couple of years before we get on the up and up and start to win some games. But that winning while rebuilding is starting to sound very familiar. And these acquisitions that we made in the offseason in just one game, and this is the Giant overreaction. That's why we're here, to do a little bit of overreacting. In one game, it does not look good. And this, last year might have been a little bit of smoke and a bit of an anomaly. And if we do regress and fall back to being a below average team, I think that's the thing that we're going to point to, is the winning while rebuilding. Bringing in guys like Waller and re-signing Daniel Jones to this long contract and giving Saquon Barkley a one-year contract and re-signing guys like Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard, even some of the core pieces that you looked at, which I think those were some good signings, locking up guys like Dexter Lawrence, Andrew Thomas. The drafting of guys like Kayvon Thibodeau, Evan Neal, Deonte Banks, people who, if you're going to win and rebuild at the same time, you need them to come in and make an immediate impact. I do think that that's something we're going to look back at. And I think it's going to be interesting to revisit this in a couple of years. I think they got a lot of time. They got a lot of time to get this right, man. They got a lot of time to right this ship in the right direction, for sure. And I think we got good odds. I don't think that this front office is nowhere near as bad as what we were dealing with the front office before and the coaching staff before. But that part really, really worries me, that winning while rebuilding, because me and homies like Sal and homies like Bass, we was ready to just blow this shit up in the offseason. And instead, the New York Giants decided to run it back, and the vibes and the mood is going to be dark until we get out there against the Arizona Cardinals and hopefully get a victory. Don't overlook them. We got a tough stretch. We got Arizona, we got Seattle, Miami, Buffalo, and the Jets, and then we're going to be taking on the Washington Commanders at home. That was our only divisional game until week 7, so we got to wait a long time before we can try to get back in that winning column in the division. Don't sleep on these Commanders. I'm here in Washington, D.C. I live here on North Capitol. I'm going to be moving this month. And this space, these are going to be some of them last streams y'all see in this space. This is my private studio in the lower level of my home here. And we're going to be moving and whatnot. And I'm hoping that it's a shift to represent what the New York Giants are going to be doing, which is moving in the right direction. But last night was tough. That was tough to watch. I'm going to try to put it behind me. We got to talk about it again tomorrow. We're going to be here at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope y'all can pull up and rock out with us, man. And again, man, all of y'all that rocked out with us today, man, big salute to y'all, man. And I told y'all this was going to be a good show. I brought Peter Rosenberg for y'all. That's my guy right there, man. He always going to keep it funky. Support what he does, man. He's a good dude, man. Peter Rosenberg's a good dude. He's been a good dude around me, like, ever since I met him. And I met him when if some of y'all remember this back in the day, he made a Jim Jones parody called Bowling, which was a parody on ballin'. And I remember he was like, "You want to be in this video, man?" I was like, "Nah, bro, I'm good. I don't want to be on the opposite end of that one." And I sat there and I watched the video shoot with him. That was like one of the first times I met Peter. And then I used to see him out on the streets and on U Street in the rap scene and whatnot. And that dude has done nothing but show me love. He's a good dude, man. A lot of people don't like his takes, his personality and whatnot. But Peter Rosenberg represents hip-hop. And hip-hop is us. I'm here. I had somebody come into my comment section and say, "I don't like when y'all play beats on the show." Bro, I am hip-hop. I live hip-hop. I represent hip-hop. We're going to play beats on this show until this show don't exist no more. So again, I thank y'all for y'all time, man. I appreciate y'all today. Y'all know what it is, man. Keep raising that bar. Keep living those dreams, because the universe flows in Technicolor and surround sound. I'll catch y'all tomorrow, 7 p.m., man. Same spot here on Awthentik and the Beard. To those of y'all that showed up, if you could hit that like button on your way out, that goes a great deal with this algorithm. We're trying to get more eyes on this. I, myself, and the Beard think we put together some really high-quality content, some of the best content you could get in the Giants community here. That will be a solid favor for us. And if you like the vibes, man, and you was feeling the vibes today, and you a Giants fan or a Commanders fan or an Eagles fan or a Cowboys fan or an NFL fan of any other team, and you dig the vibes, man, hit that subscribe button and become a part of this family. Until then, I'll see y'all tomorrow, man, 7 p.m. Y'all be good. Enjoy the rest of y'all day as much as you can, man. And y'all know what it is, to the death. Go Giants, man. Y'all be good. Peace.
Spike don't care.